My mother told me to turn around and find somewhere else to go for Thanksgiving because my sister did not want my depressing energy ruining her perfect night. So I dragged my suitcase through a blizzard to a crowded restaurant where I was forced to share a table with two strangers. 6 years later, those strangers are my legal family, and my biological parents only found out the truth when they tried to crash my wedding to extort my husband. Before I continue this story, let me know where you are watching from in the comments below. Hit like and subscribe if you have ever had to walk away from toxic relatives to find your true worth. My name is Olivia. I am 32 years old, working as the director of risk data analytics. But the night my life shattered and rebuilt itself all at once, I was 26, freezing and standing on the front porch of my childhood home in a wealthy Connecticut suburb. The snow was falling heavily, sticking to my coat and melting into my boots. I had just taken a grueling 6-hour bus ride from my cramped apartment in the city, dragging a heavy suitcase containing the only nice clothes I owned and a freshly baked pecan pie I had spent my last few dollars making. I was exhausted, buried under a mountain of student debt and barely scraping by on an entry-level analyst salary. But it was Thanksgiving. I just wanted to be warm. I just wanted to sit by the fire, eat a warm meal, and pretend we were a normal family. I pressed the doorbell, my fingers completely numb. Through the frosted glass panes of the front door, I could see the golden glow of the fireplace and the silhouettes of people moving around the living room. I could hear the faint sound of jazz music and the booming, confident laugh of my brother-in-law, Jamal. Jamal was a hedge fund manager who came from a highly prestigious, traditional African-American family. He was brilliant, wealthy, and unapologetically arrogant. My parents worshipped the ground he walked on. He was the ultimate trophy son-in-law, a man who elevated our family status simply by association. My older sister Brittany had secured the golden ticket when she married him, cementing her position as the undisputed favorite child. The lock clicked. The door opened just a few inches. My mother Patricia stood in the narrow gap. She was wearing a flawless silk dress, a string of pearls resting against her collarbone, holding a crystal glass of champagne. She did not open the door wide enough for me to step inside. The blast of warm, cinnamon-scented air from the house hit my freezing face, mocking me. "What are you doing here, Olivia?" she hissed, glancing nervously over her shoulder toward the living room. I stared at her, confused, the heavy suitcase pulling on my aching shoulder. "It is Thanksgiving, Mom. I told you I was coming. I took the early bus." Patricia stepped forward, blocking the gap entirely. "You cannot come in. Jamal and Brittany are about to announce their pregnancy tonight." Jamal's parents flew in on their private charter. "This is a massive night for our family reputation." I stood there, the snow piling up on my shoulders, trying to process her words. "I am your family, Mom. I am her sister. I want to celebrate with her." My mother's eyes raked over my cheap winter coat, my snow-soaked boots, and the tired expression on my face. Her lip curled in undisguised distaste. "Look at you, Olivia. You look exhausted and frankly depressing. You are 26 years old, drowning in student debt, working as some low-level assistant, staring at spreadsheets all day. Jamal comes from a proud elite family. They do not understand people who struggle. I will not have your pathetic, broke energy ruining your sister's perfect night and embarrassing my son-in-law." A sharp physical pain radiated through my chest, far worse than the biting cold. I had spent my entire life being pushed aside so Brittany could shine. When I won a state mathematics competition, my parents skipped the award ceremony to attend Brittany's cheerleading banquet. When I took out massive loans to pay for college, my parents liquidated their savings to buy Brittany a luxury car so she could fit in with her wealthy sorority sisters. I had accepted my role as the invisible daughter. I had accepted the neglect. But to be physically barred from my own childhood home on a holiday because my mere existence was considered a stain on their pristine image was a cruelty I could not comprehend. "Mom, I am freezing," I whispered, my teeth chattering. "I have nowhere else to go. The buses are not running back to the city tonight." Patricia reached into her designer clutch, pulled out a crumpled $50 bill, and shoved it directly against my chest. "Here, go find a diner. Buy yourself a turkey sandwich and find a cheap motel. Just do not come inside." Before I could say another word, she stepped back and slammed the heavy oak door directly in my face. The deadbolt clicked. I stood frozen on the porch. The music inside seemed to grow louder. I heard the clinking of glasses. I heard my father Thomas making a toast. They were celebrating a new life, completely unbothered by the fact that they had just cast their own flesh and blood out into a blizzard. There were no tears. I thought I would cry, but my eyes remained completely dry. The hurt evaporated, replaced instantly by a cold, searing rage. I looked at the $50 bill fluttering in my numb fingers. I let it drop to the snow-covered porch. I turned around, grabbed the handle of my suitcase, and walked away into the dark. I walked for nearly 2 miles through the affluent suburban streets, dragging my luggage through heavy snowdrifts. Every house I passed featured brightly lit windows showcasing happy families gathered around massive dining tables. My hands were entirely numb by the time I reached the commercial district. Almost everything was closed for the holiday. Finally, I spotted a neon sign cutting through the whiteout conditions. It was a high-end French bistro, one of the few places catering to locals who preferred dining out for the holidays. I pushed through the heavy glass doors, instantly enveloped by the smell of roasted duck truffles and expensive wine. The restaurant was packed. The maitre d' looked at my snow-covered coat and my bulky suitcase with deep skepticism. "I am so sorry, miss," he said politely but firmly. "We are completely booked for the evening. We do not have a single open table." I felt my knees threatening to give out. "I just need to sit down for a moment," I pleaded, gripping the hostess stand. "Please." Before he could usher me back out into the cold, a calm, authoritative voice cut through the ambient noise of the restaurant. "She can join us. We have plenty of space." I turned to see a woman in her late 50s sitting at a spacious corner booth. She possessed a kind of quiet, absolute power that commanded instant respect. She wore a tailored cashmere blazer, and her sharp, intelligent eyes assessed me with calculating precision. Sitting across from her was a man in his early 30s, dressed in a bespoke charcoal suit. He had the same piercing, analytical gaze as the woman. The maitre d' instantly bowed his head. "Of course, Madame Rothschild. Right away." I was led to their table, shivering as I took off my wet coat. I apologized profusely for intruding, feeling entirely out of place in my cheap sweater among the elite clientele. "Do not apologize for surviving the cold," the woman said, gesturing for a waiter to bring me a menu. "I am Diana. This is my son Liam. Order whatever you like to warm up." I thanked them, introducing myself simply as Olivia. For the first 20 minutes, we ate in comfortable silence. Diana and Liam spoke quietly about corporate acquisitions, restructuring assets, and legal frameworks. I recognized the terminology immediately. Liam was clearly a high-level mergers and acquisitions lawyer, and Diana spoke with the authority of someone who controlled massive amounts of capital. They did not pry into why I was dragging a suitcase through a blizzard on Thanksgiving. They simply offered a safe harbor. Then my phone rang. The shrill ringtone shattered the elegant quiet of our corner booth. I glanced at the screen and saw my manager's name flashing. It was 8 p.m. on Thanksgiving. A call at this hour meant an absolute catastrophe. I apologized to Diana and Liam, intending to decline the call, but my instincts as a risk analyst kicked in. I answered. "Olivia!" My manager screamed through the speaker, his voice tight with pure panic. "The regional compliance audit just flagged the beta portfolio. The algorithm you warned us about last week triggered a cascade failure. The risk exposure is bleeding across our active margin accounts. The SEC regulators are going to freeze our assets by tomorrow morning. We are looking at a $10 million fine. You need to fix this right now." My manager was a notorious coward who routinely ignored my risk models to chase short-term profits. I had submitted a detailed report 7 days ago highlighting this exact vulnerability. He had laughed at me and called me overly cautious. Now he was trying to dump the fallout squarely on my shoulders to save his own job. I did not panic. I did not apologize. I reached into my bag, pulled out my laptop, and flipped it open right there on the dining table. The glowing screen illuminated my face. My fingers flew across the keyboard, bypassing the standard company firewall and accessing the raw data streams directly from the server. Rows of complex financial metrics reflected in my eyes. I took a sharp breath, completely forgetting that two highly influential strangers were watching me. "You ignored the predictive risk model I submitted on Tuesday," I said into the phone, my voice dropping to a low, lethal cadence. "I specifically highlighted the cascading volatility in the beta portfolio. You bypassed my security protocols to maximize your quarterly bonus." He stammered, trying to shift the blame, but I cut him off. "Shut up and listen to me. The exposure is currently at 12 million, not 10, but the margin call has not fully executed on the European servers yet. I am isolating the corrupted data string right now. I am executing the automated hedge protocol I built last week, the one you refused to authorize. It will compartmentalize the bad assets, generate a firewall around the primary liquidity pool, and trigger an automated compliance report for the SEC, proving we caught the anomaly internally." I hit the enter key with a resounding crack. The lines of red code on my screen instantly shifted to green. "The bleeding has stopped," I said coldly. "You are safe from the SEC audit. But when Human Resources reviews the unalterable system logs tomorrow, they will see that I saved this company from your gross negligence. Enjoy your holiday." I hung up the phone and closed the laptop. My heart was pounding, the adrenaline rushing through my veins. For the first time all night, I felt powerful. I felt in control. I looked up. Diana and Liam were staring at me. They had stopped eating. Liam had a slight impressed smirk on his face. Diana was looking at me as if she had just discovered a diamond buried in the mud. "You are a risk data analyst," Diana stated. It was not a question. "Yes," I replied, suddenly self-conscious. "I specialize in predictive market volatility and compliance hedging. I am sorry for taking that call at the table." Diana waved her hand dismissively. "You just executed a complex data hedge to isolate a $12 million exposure on a laptop in a restaurant using unverified hotel Wi-Fi. You did not break a sweat. You did not raise your voice. You simply destroyed a problem that terrified your superior." Before I could respond, my phone buzzed again. This time it was a text message. I looked down at the screen. It was from Thomas, my biological father. I read the message, and whatever residual warmth I felt from my professional victory vanished. "Do not post anything on social media about not being here tonight. Jamal is considering a massive capital injection into my supply company next quarter. He thinks we are a perfect unified family. Your sister needs this night to go flawlessly to secure her position with his wealthy parents. Do not ruin this for us with your usual dramatic behavior. Stay away, stay quiet, and do not call us." I stared at the glowing words. They did not just want me out of the house, they wanted me entirely erased. They viewed me as a humiliating secret that needed to be swept under the rug so they could leech off Jamal's wealth. My father was willing to sacrifice his daughter to secure a business deal with his arrogant son-in-law. I felt a bitter, empty hollow in my chest. I placed the phone face down on the table. "Bad news?" Liam asked quietly, his sharp eyes catching the shift in my demeanor. "Just an old debt," I replied, my voice completely devoid of emotion. "One that I am officially writing off." Diana reached into her tailored blazer. She retrieved a heavy, matte black business card with gold foil lettering. She slid it smoothly across the pristine white tablecloth until it rested right in front of me. I looked down. The card read, "Rothschild Capital. Diana Rothschild, Chief Executive Officer." "Your biological family is incredibly blind," Diana said, her voice carrying a terrifying, beautiful weight. "They look at you and see a burden. I look at you and see an apex predator who just hasn't been given the right hunting ground." She leaned forward, her eyes locking onto mine. "You possess an intellect that terrifies weak men, Olivia. Your family cast you out into the snow because they cannot comprehend your value. But I can. Tomorrow morning at 9, you will walk into the headquarters of Rothschild Capital. You will leave that mediocre job. You will come work for me. And I promise you, within a few years, the people who locked you out tonight will be begging for your mercy." I looked at the gold lettering on the card. I thought about my mother shoving that $50 bill into my chest. I thought about my father demanding my silence to protect his fragile ego. I thought about Jamal and Brittany laughing in the warmth while I froze. The girl who cried for her parents' approval died right then and there. A new woman took her first breath. I picked up the card, sliding it into my pocket. I will be there at 8:30, Madam Rothschild. 6 years evaporate like rain on hot asphalt. The freezing snow of that Thanksgiving night is now nothing more than a distant memory, replaced by the warm, amber lighting and hushed elegance of L'Etoile Bridal in Manhattan. I am 32 years old, standing on a velvet-lined pedestal, running my hands over the immaculate silk of a custom wedding gown. My career trajectory as a director of risk data analytics has taught me to appreciate clean lines, flawless execution, and zero margin for error. The dress reflects exactly who I have become. There are no excessive rhinestones, no chaotic layers of tulle. It is sharp, sophisticated, and undeniably powerful. The boutique is entirely closed to the public, for my fitting ensuring absolute privacy. My reflection in the floor-to-ceiling mirror shows a woman who built her own empire from the ground up, entirely free from the suffocating expectations of a family that saw her only as an inconvenience. But peace is a fragile construct, especially when dealing with ghosts from the past. The heavy oak doors of the boutique swing open, breaking the serene silence. High-pitched complaining voices echo through the reception area, followed immediately by the frantic apologies of the front desk associate. I do not need to turn around to recognize the sharp, grating tone of my mother Patricia and the entitled sigh of my younger sister Brittany. They push their way into the private viewing room, carrying an assortment of evening gowns they must have pulled from the discount rack of a neighboring department store. Brittany is 29 now, clutching a violently bright sequined dress that perfectly matches her desperate need for attention. They are loudly demanding a fitting room, claiming they have a country club gala to attend and need emergency alterations. The sales associate tries to block their path, explaining that the salon is reserved, but Patricia simply pushes past her with a practiced look of disdain. Then the inevitable happens. The movement in the room catches their attention, and their eyes lock onto me standing on the pedestal. The silence that follows is thick and heavy. Patricia stops dead in her tracks, her manicured hand flying to her chest. Brittany drops the hangers she is holding, her eyes raking over my tailored silk gown, the pristine showroom, and the 3 attendants carefully pinning my train. 6 years of absolute silence between us, and the first emotion that registers on my sister's face is not relief or surprise, but pure, unadulterated envy. She steps forward, her lips twisting into a familiar, mocking sneer. "Well, look who finally crawled out of hiding," Brittany says, her voice echoing loudly off the mirrored walls. "I see you are still wearing the most boring plain clothes imaginable. You always did have terrible taste. What is a wage worker like you doing in a place like this? Did you take out another high-interest student loan just to play dress-up for an hour? Or did you max out your credit cards, trying to trap some poor guy into marrying you?" I do not flinch. I do not break eye contact. I slowly step down from the pedestal, the silk of my gown gliding effortlessly across the carpet. I look at Brittany, taking in her poorly maintained hair, the strain around her eyes, and the cheap, gaudy dress she brought in to be altered. She is exactly the same person who laughed while I was locked out in a blizzard. My mother finally finds her voice, stepping up right beside Brittany to form their usual united front. "You disappear for 6 years without a single phone call to your own father," Patricia snaps, crossing her arms over her chest. "And this is where we find you, pretending to be high class in Manhattan. You owe this family an enormous apology, Olivia. We spent years worrying about you, and here you are wasting money on a wedding dress you probably cannot even afford. You always were incredibly selfish, thinking only of yourself, while your sister has been working hard to build a real family." Before I can point out the absolute hypocrisy of their statements, the front doors swing open again. A man strides into the boutique, talking loudly into his cell phone. It is Jamal, Brittany's husband. He is dressed in a flashy designer suit, that fits a little too tightly, his wrist aggressively positioned to display a massive diamond-encrusted watch. He hangs up the phone, completely ignoring the sales associates, and walks directly over to Brittany. "Babe, just buy whatever you want," Jamal announces loudly, making sure everyone in the room hears him. "We are celebrating today." Then he notices me standing a few feet away. He pauses, his arrogant smile widening as he looks me up and down. Well, if it isn't the invisible sister-in-law. Still crunching numbers in a cubicle somewhere, Jamal does not wait for an answer. He turns his attention to the terrified boutique manager, pointing a finger at my fitting area. "Listen, put my wife's alterations and whatever dresses she wants on her tab," he says, gesturing vaguely toward me. "My hedge fund is currently routing a massive $5 million transaction through our offshore accounts. The capital transfer requires multiple security clearances, so my liquid assets are temporarily tied up until tomorrow morning. It is a minor inconvenience for people at my tax bracket." He turns back to me, his chest puffed out with absolute arrogance. "Just swipe your little debit card, Olivia. Consider it a late wedding gift for us. I will reimburse you when my Vanguard deal clears tomorrow. You should be honored to help out a successful entrepreneur." The audacity is so staggering it almost borders on comedy. This is the exact dynamic they have relied on for decades. They create the demand, they establish the narrative, and they expect me to quietly foot the bill. Brittany immediately jumps in to support her husband. "You heard him, Olivia. You owe us for abandoning the family." Patricia nods vigorously in agreement. "It is the absolute least you can do to support your brother-in-law's massive success, especially since you refused to be happy for them 6 years ago." Jamal crosses his arms, the heavy watch catching the showroom lights. "Just pay the bill, Olivia. Do not make a scene. My time is incredibly valuable, and I do not have the patience to argue with a data clerk over a few $1,000s. 3 ridiculous entitled demands delivered with the absolute certainty that I will fold." I look at the boutique manager who is gripping her tablet, unsure of how to handle the escalating tension. I give her a subtle nod, indicating I have the situation entirely under control. I step forward, closing the distance between myself and Jamal. I do not raise my voice. I do not express anger. I simply leverage the absolute terrifying power of verified data. "A $5 million Vanguard transaction," I repeat slowly, letting the words hang in the quiet room. I reach into the pocket of my blazer resting on a nearby chair and pull out my phone. I tap a few keys, accessing the real-time financial tracking software my team designed specifically for monitoring high-risk hedge funds. I turn the screen so Jamal can see the flashing red indicators. "That is absolutely fascinating, Jamal," I say, my voice cold and precise. "Because the Securities and Exchange Commission halted all trading on your specific Vanguard portfolio at exactly 8:15 this morning. The halt was triggered by a federal investigation into fraudulent margin reporting and misappropriation of client funds. Your liquid assets are not tied up in offshore accounts. They are permanently seized by federal regulators." I watch the color completely drain from Jamal's face. His jaw drops and he instinctively takes a step backward, looking as if the floor has just vanished beneath his feet. But I am not finished. I glance down at the heavy diamond-encrusted watch he has been flashing around the room, and that impressive Rolex you keep waving in everyone's face. I continue stepping even closer, so he cannot escape my gaze. The serial number engraved on the clasp, which is clearly visible from this angle, perfectly matches the inventory database of Lux Time Daily Rentals. "Your 24-hour lease agreement expires at exactly 5 o'clock this evening. I highly suggest you return it immediately before they charge your overdrawn frozen bank account a penalty fee you absolutely cannot afford." The silence in the boutique is deafening. The sales associates are staring eyes wide. Brittany looks back and forth between me and Jamal, panic beginning to register on her face. Jamal is completely paralyzed, his arrogant facade shattered into a million irreparable pieces. He stammers, trying to form a coherent sentence, but the data is undeniable. The truth has cornered him in a room full of mirrors, leaving him absolutely nowhere to hide. "You are lying!" Patricia suddenly shrieks, breaking the silence. Her voice is shrill, vibrating with frantic denial as she rushes to position herself defensively in front of Jamal. She points a trembling finger directly at my face. You are a jealous, spiteful brat. How dare you make up such vicious, calculated lies about your successful brother-in-law? You cannot stand the fact that Brittany married a wealthy, powerful man while you are still a lonely, bitter spinster trying on dresses for a wedding that probably does not even exist. You are just trying to humiliate us because you have always been the failure of this family. Before I have to respond to her frantic delusions, the boutique manager finally steps forward. She has heard enough. Her posture is rigid, her tone dripping with the kind of polite authority reserved for handling unruly trespassers. Is there a problem here? The manager asks, stepping deliberately between me and Patricia. Jamal, trying desperately to salvage a shred of his shattered dignity, puffs out his chest again. Yes, there is a problem, he barks, adjusting his rented watch nervously. This woman is harassing us with baseless accusations. Kick her out immediately. We are paying customers and we demand respect. The manager looks at me, offering a brief, respectful nod, before turning her gaze to Jamal with absolute zero tolerance. I will do no such thing, she states clearly, her voice echoing through the pristine showroom. You forced your way into a closed salon and are now aggressively disrupting a private fitting for a VVIP client of the Rothschild family. She signals to the two large security guards stationed near the entrance. Gentlemen, escort these three individuals off the premises immediately. They are no longer welcome here. The realization hits Patricia and Brittany simultaneously. The name drops like an anvil in the quiet room. Rothschild. Patricia gasps, her eyes darting from the manager to me. The billionaire investment family. Brittany's face twists in a mixture of profound shock and sudden desperate greed as she connects the dots. You are marrying into the Rothschild family? Brittany asks, her voice trembling. The security guards place their hands firmly on Jamal and Thomas's shoulders, guiding them forcefully toward the heavy oak doors. Patricia digs her heels into the carpet, fighting the guards as they push her out. You are getting married, Patricia screams over her shoulder as the doors begin to close. Do not expect your father and me to walk you down the aisle. We will never bless this union until you show us the respect we deserve. Just as the guards push them through the threshold, a sleek black town car pulls up to the curb outside the boutique. The rear door opens and Liam steps out onto the pavement. He is wearing a flawless navy suit, his presence commanding immediate attention from everyone on the street. He hears Patricia's frantic screaming and stops right in front of her. He looks at my mother with an expression of profound, chilling indifference. You do not have to worry about attending the wedding, Liam says coldly, adjusting his cuffs. People like you will never have the security clearance to even look at the venue. Enjoy your walk home. He steps past them, walking into the boutique to greet me, leaving my biological family standing on the sidewalk, their greed fully activated, completely unaware of the absolute destruction awaiting them. The air inside the boutique settles the moment Liam walks in. He kisses my cheek, ignoring the chaos that just spilled out onto the street. Your risk assessment algorithms are getting faster, he notes, glancing at my laptop still resting on the side table. It took you exactly 3 minutes to dismantle his entire financial facade. I smile, returning to the pedestal so the attendants can finish pinning the hem of my dress. He made it incredibly easy, I reply. Jamal's entire portfolio is built on leveraged margin debt and sheer arrogance. He is currently $4 million underwater, and the bank is preparing to call in his loans. My father will undoubtedly try to cover the deficit to protect the family image. Liam leans against the velvet chair, his eyes dark with calculation. Let them try. We have been waiting for them to make a desperate move. Within 48 hours, the fallout from the boutique encounter begins to materialize exactly as predicted. Jamal's financial ruin becomes impossible to hide. The SEC formally announces their investigation into Alpha Global, freezing all remaining assets. Thomas, terrified of the social humiliation that would come from a high-profile bankruptcy in the family, begins frantically liquidating his own business assets to cover Jamal's massive margin calls. But $4 million is a chasm he cannot easily bridge. Driven by the recent discovery of my connection to the Rothschild empire, my biological family decides that I am the perfect solution to their self-inflicted crisis. The harassment begins systematically. My phone is inundated with emails, voicemails, and text messages from Thomas, Patricia, and Brittany. The messages shift rapidly between aggressive demands and manipulative guilt trips. Thomas leaves a voicemail at my office. Olivia, you are about to marry into infinite wealth. Have your fiancé transfer $4 million to Jamal's holding company immediately. Jamal is a black man in a ruthless industry, and if he goes down, the press will use it to destroy our family's reputation. You have a moral obligation to protect your brother-in-law. I delete the voicemail without a second thought. Financial fraud is a federal crime, not a racial injustice issue, and I refuse to be complicit in their delusions. When the demands for cash are met with absolute silence, Brittany escalates the situation, resorting to the only weapon she has ever effectively wielded: social media manipulation. Brittany launches a coordinated smear campaign across Instagram and TikTok. She posts tearful videos from her living room, claiming that her older sister suffered a severe mental breakdown years ago, abandoned their loving, struggling family, and has now manipulated her way into a wealthy dynasty. She portrays herself as the heartbroken, supportive sister, just trying to reunite their fractured family before the wedding. Patricia joins the performance, posting long, emotional statements about how they only want to see their daughter walk down the aisle. The videos gain traction. Comment sections fill with strangers attacking my character, calling me a gold digger, a sociopath, and a toxic child who abandoned her roots for a paycheck. They use this manufactured public outrage to justify their ultimate extortion attempt. Assuming my silence indicates fear, Patricia drafts a highly confidential, threatening email directed not to me, but directly to Diana Rothschild. Patricia believes Diana is merely a wealthy matriarch concerned with high society gossip and preserving a pristine family image. The email demands a quiet, untraceable transfer of $4 million to Thomas's business account. In exchange, Patricia promises to delete the videos, silence Brittany, and keep my supposed troubled past completely hidden from the elite circles of New York. Later that evening, as Liam and I review seating charts in our apartment, my phone rings. It is Diana. Her voice is calm, resonant, and entirely devoid of panic. "I just received a rather amusing extortion letter from your mother," Diana says smoothly. "It appears they think I am susceptible to blackmail." I close the seating chart, feeling the familiar cold precision take over. "What would you like to do?" I ask. I can hear the smile in Diana's voice. "It is time to clean up this garbage," she replies. "Proceed with the debt buyout. Let us crush them completely." The trap is officially set. While Patricia and Brittany celebrate what they assume is a successful blackmail campaign, I spend the next morning in my office executing a highly classified financial maneuver. I route capital through a subsidiary risk management firm that I personally control. I purchase the $4 million leveraged debt owed by Jamal directly from the desperate creditors. Simultaneously, I buy out the high-interest mortgage Thomas secretly took out on his suburban home to temporarily stall Jamal's bankruptcy. By noon, I hold the absolute legal right to seize every single asset my biological family possesses. Unaware that the ground beneath them has completely dissolved, Patricia, Thomas, Brittany, and Jamal boldly book first-class flights and luxury suites at the Ritz-Carlton for the weekend of my wedding, charging everything to a credit card they believe I will be forced to pay off. They are walking directly into the fire, completely blinded by their own limitless greed. The grand ballroom of the Ritz-Carlton is a masterpiece of gilded elegance and crystal chandeliers. 300 of the most influential figures in finance and law are seated at tables adorned with white orchids. Liam and I stand near the center podium, the string quartet playing softly in the background. Everything is flawless. Everything is precise. Suddenly, the heavy mahogany doors at the back of the hall burst open. The string quartet falters for a fraction of a second. Patricia, Thomas, Brittany, and Jamal march into the venue wearing expressions of absolute entitlement. They had tipped off a handful of tabloid photographers who are now hovering near the entrance, hoping to catch the wealthy Rothschild family in a vulnerable moment. Patricia spots me. She immediately shifts her posture, plastering on a manufactured smile designed purely for the cameras. "Olivia, my darling daughter," Patricia shouts, her voice echoing uncomfortably through the cavernous room. She rushes forward with her arms outstretched perfectly, playing the role of the loving mother who has finally been reunited with her child. "We made it to your big day." I do not move. I do not smile. I simply take one deliberate step backward, letting her outstretched arms grasp nothing but empty air. The cameras flash near the doorway. The guests fall completely silent, their eyes locked on the unfolding spectacle. Patricia drops her arms, her fake smile instantly hardening into a glare of genuine malice. "You are going to play it like this," she hisses under her breath so only I can hear. She turns slightly, raising her voice so the nearest tables can catch every word. "We came all this way to celebrate with you, Olivia. But since you want to act like you are better than your own blood, let us get straight to business. You are marrying into a billionaire family today. You will write a check for $4 million right now to clear your brother-in-law's debts. If you refuse, I will stand in front of those cameras and tell the entire world exactly where you came from. I will tell them how selfish and unstable you are. I will ruin this perfect little life you have built." Jamal steps up beside her, adjusting the cuffs of his rented tuxedo. He looks around the opulent ballroom with undisguised greed. "Consider it an investment in family unity, Olivia. $4 million is spare change for the Rothschilds. Pay it and we will sit down quietly and enjoy the salmon." I look at Jamal. Then I look at my mother. I reach over and take the microphone from the podium stand. My voice projects clearly through the state-of-the-art sound system echoing off the gilded ceiling. "Family unity," I say, my tone stripping the warmth from the room. "That is a fascinating concept coming from a group of people who locked me out in a blizzard 6 years ago because my lack of wealth was considered an embarrassment. You do not want family unity. You want a bailout because you are completely out of options." Patricia's face turns an ugly shade of red. She points a trembling finger at me. "You ungrateful brat! We gave you life. You owe us everything. We demand that $4 million right now." Liam steps up beside me. He places a reassuring hand on the small of my back, then turns his gaze to Jamal. He motions to the audio-visual technicians at the back of the room. The massive screens that were previously displaying our monogram suddenly flicker. "Ladies and gentlemen," Liam says smoothly into the microphone, "please direct your attention to the screens. My lovely wife and I believe in absolute transparency, especially when dealing with uninvited guests demanding capital. The screens illuminate with stark, undeniable data. Red warning banners and official federal seals dominate the display." Jamal's jaw drops as he recognizes the documents. "What you are looking at is a federal indictment." Liam continues, his voice cutting like glass. "Jamal, your hedge fund is not just failing. You are currently under active investigation by the Securities and Exchange Commission and the FBI for severe wire fraud. You defrauded your investors, leveraged capital you did not possess, and attempted to hide the losses in offshore shell companies." The ballroom erupts in shocked whispers. Brittany grabs Jamal's arm, her face pale with sudden terror. "What is he talking about, Jamal?" she demands. "Tell them it is a lie." Jamal cannot speak. He is staring at the screens in pure horror. "But it gets better," I say, stepping back to the microphone. "Because you were so desperate to maintain your fraudulent lifestyle, you took out a high-interest loan against the only asset your family had left." I tap a button on the podium. The screen shifts to display a mortgage deed. Thomas's name is stamped clearly at the top. "Thomas," I say, looking directly at my biological father, "you secretly mortgaged your house to keep Jamal out of federal prison. But the creditors realized the risk was too high. They sold your debt on the secondary market yesterday afternoon. And the firm that purchased your debt, the firm that now holds the absolute legal right to foreclose on your home and seize every single asset you own, is Rothschild Capital. I personally signed the acquisition papers." Thomas staggers backward as if he has been physically struck. He looks at the screen, then at me, his eyes wide with a mixture of rage and terror. "You cannot do this!" Thomas roars, his voice cracking with desperation. "I am your father. Under the law, I am your blood. You have a legal and moral obligation to support your parents. I will drag you into court. I will sue you for parental maintenance. I will take half of everything you own. You cannot sever a bloodline." The absolute silence in the bridal boutique is heavy enough to crush stone. The soft classical music playing overhead suddenly feels incredibly loud against the backdrop of Jamal's total humiliation. I stand perfectly still in my custom silk gown, watching the exact moment the illusion of his wealth shatters. The confident, booming hedge fund manager who walked in demanding I pay for his wife's cheap dress is gone. In his place stands a man sweating through his rented designer suit, his eyes darting frantically around the room as he realizes I have completely dismantled his entire financial existence in less than 60 seconds. "You have no idea what you are talking about," Jamal stammers. His voice lacks its usual booming resonance. It sounds thin and desperate. He pulls his wrist back quickly, hiding the leased Rolex behind his back, as if removing it from my sight will somehow erase the truth. "That is highly confidential corporate data. You are making up numbers to sound important. I am a millionaire. I do not raise my voice. I do not need to. I am not making up anything, Jamal." I reply smoothly, maintaining absolute eye contact. The SEC filing is public record as of 8:15 this morning. The asset freeze is actively executing across all your accounts right now. If you try to run your credit card for my sister's alterations, it will be declined. You are entirely bankrupt. The two sales attendants standing near the fitting rooms exchange wide-eyed glances, whispering quietly to one another. The embarrassment is too much for Jamal to bear. He takes a step backward, physically retreating toward the exit, leaving Brittany standing alone in her garish, sequined dress. Before Jamal can attempt another pathetic excuse, Patricia finally snaps out of her shock. She cannot comprehend the complex financial terminology, but she understands that her golden son-in-law is being publicly humiliated by the daughter she threw away. She surges forward, placing herself between Jamal and me like a shield. "You vicious, lying little brat!" Patricia shrieks, her voice piercing the elegant quiet of the salon. Her face is flushed and angry, mottled red. "How dare you stand there and spout this absolute garbage? Jamal is a highly successful investor. He comes from a prominent family. You are nothing but a jealous, bitter spinster who cannot stand to see your sister happy." She points a trembling finger at my face, stepping so close I can smell the stale mints and cheap wine on her breath. "You have been holding this grudge for 6 years because you could not accept that Brittany is simply better than you. And now you think you can embarrass us in a bridal shop. You probably snuck in here just to take pictures in dresses you could never afford. You owe Jamal a massive apology. You owe your sister an apology, and you are going to pay for her dress right now to make up for this repulsive behavior." Brittany immediately catches her cue. She covers her face with her hands, forcing out loud theatrical sobs. "It is so unfair," Brittany wails, leaning heavily against Jamal's arm. "I just wanted a nice day out and she ruins everything. She is so obsessed with ruining my life. Why is she so evil, Mom?" It is a masterclass in manipulation. For 26 years, this exact performance had worked perfectly. Brittany would play the victim, Patricia would act as the enforcer, and I would be forced to apologize and pay the price for their comfort. But they are dealing with a ghost. The frightened girl they used to control no longer exists. I look at Patricia's pointed finger, then up to her furious eyes. "I am not going to apologize, Patricia, and I am certainly not paying a single cent for her dress. You will do exactly as I say." Patricia screams, entirely losing her composure. "Excuse me, that is absolutely enough." The voice cuts through Patricia's screaming like a steel blade. The boutique manager, a tall, impeccably dressed woman named Genevieve, steps directly into the center of the confrontation. She has been observing the entire interaction from the reception desk, and her patience has completely evaporated. She stands between me and my biological family, her posture rigid with professional fury. "I am going to have to ask you three to leave this establishment immediately." Genevieve states, her voice perfectly calm but echoing with absolute authority. Patricia turns her rage onto the manager, planting her hands on her hips. Do not you dare speak to me like that. We are paying customers. My son-in-law is a millionaire. We demand to be treated with respect, and we want her kicked out for harassing us. Genevieve does not even blink. She signals to the large security guard stationed at the front entrance, who immediately begins walking toward our section of the showroom. You are not paying customers, Genevieve replies, her tone dropping to a glacial chill. Your son-in-law's card was declined at the front desk exactly 3 minutes ago for insufficient funds. Furthermore, you forced your way into a closed private viewing salon to verbally abuse and harass one of our most valued clients. Brittany lowers her hands, the fake tears instantly stopping. Valued client. She works in a cubicle. She cannot afford anything in this store. Genevieve looks at Brittany with an expression of profound pity. You clearly have absolutely no idea who you are speaking to. This entire boutique was closed to the public today exclusively for her fitting. She is a VVIP client. She is the future daughter-in-law of Diana Rothschild, and she is marrying Liam Rothschild in exactly 2 weeks. The name hits the room with the force of a physical blow. The Rothschilds are not just wealthy, they are an institution. They control billion-dollar hedge funds, massive real estate portfolios, and wield the kind of generational power that Jamal could only dream of faking. Patricia's mouth falls open. Her arm drops limply to her side. The angry red flush on her face vanishes, replaced by a sickly pale white. She stares at me, her eyes wide, trying to comprehend the magnitude of the words. Rothschild. Patricia whispers, her voice trembling. You are marrying a Rothschild. Jamal looks physically ill. The realization that he just tried to extort a few $1,000s from a woman marrying into a billionaire dynasty is visibly crushing him. He knows the Rothschild firm. He knows they have the power to obliterate him with a single phone call. Escort them out. Genevieve instructs the security guard. Now. The guard steps forward, placing a firm hand on Jamal's shoulder and gesturing toward the exit. Let's go, folks, right now. They do not fight back. The shock has completely paralyzed them. Jamal turns and practically scurries toward the front door, desperate to escape the humiliation. Brittany follows close behind, clutching the cheap dress she now has no way to pay for. Patricia is the last to move. She takes one final look at me, standing on the pedestal, in my immaculate silk gown, surrounded by attendants. For a fraction of a second, I see the absolute horror of her mistake register in her eyes, but it is instantly overshadowed by something far more dangerous. Greed. As the security guard pushes Patricia through the heavy glass doors and out onto the Manhattan sidewalk, I see her grab Brittany's arm. They are whispering frantically to each other through the glass. The embarrassment of the moment is already fading, replaced by a desperate, burning realization. They have just discovered a gold mine, and their limitless greed has officially been activated. They have no idea that they are walking directly into a trap. The delusion of their impending luxury weekend does not even survive the night. By Thursday morning, exactly 48 hours before my wedding, the walls completely cave in on Alpha Global. The blackmail email Patricia sent to Diana Rothschild failed to produce an immediate wire transfer, and the market does not wait for extortion to clear. At precisely 9 o'clock, the institutional brokers issue a brutal, unyielding margin call on Jamal's overleveraged accounts. He is instantly $4 million in deficit, and the creditors demand immediate liquidity. Thomas realizes that his frantic attempts to liquidate his own suburban assets will take weeks to process. He needs cash today, or his son-in-law faces immediate arrest and public ruin. Driven by sheer panic, Thomas decides to bypass the unanswered voicemails and bring his demands directly to my doorstep. I am in the middle of reviewing predictive market models in my corner office when my executive assistant buzzes the intercom. Her voice is tight with professional concern. She informs me that a man claiming to be my father is in the ground floor reception lobby, and he is becoming increasingly aggressive with the security staff. I do not panic. I simply pick up the freshly printed risk analysis report on Jamal's fund step into the private executive elevator and descend to the lobby. The ground floor of my corporate headquarters is a vast expanse of polished white marble, brushed steel, and acoustic dampening glass. It is a fortress of quiet, intimidating wealth. Thomas looks entirely out of place. He is pacing frantically in front of the security turnstiles. His usually immaculate suit is wrinkled, his tie is pulled loose, and a sheen of desperate sweat coats his forehead. When the elevator doors slide open and I step out, his eyes lock onto me with a mixture of rage and overwhelming relief. He genuinely believes that because he showed up in person, I will revert to the obedient, terrified daughter I used to be. He completely bypasses security, marching up to the velvet rope separating the public area from the executive lifts. He does not offer a greeting. He does not ask how I am doing. He launches straight into his demands, his voice echoing harshly in the serene lobby. "Listen to me very carefully," Olivia Thomas barks, jabbing a finger in my direction. Jamal's fund was just hit with a massive margin call. He is $4 million underwater, and the brokers are threatening to seize everything. You are marrying into a billionaire family in 2 days. I am instructing you right now to call your husband and tell him to guarantee that $4 million deficit. Have the Rothschild firm wire the capital to Jamal's holding account by noon today. I stop a few feet away from him, my expression completely blank. I look at this man who allowed me to freeze on a porch on Thanksgiving, who watched my mother and sister verbally abuse me for decades, and who now expects me to extort my fiancé to cover a fraudulent hedge fund. "You came to my place of business to demand $4 million, I ask, letting the sheer absurdity of the situation hang in the air. Thomas leans over the velvet rope, lowering his voice in a pathetic attempt to sound conspiratorial and urgent. "You do not understand the stakes here, Olivia. Jamal is a black man in a ruthless, predominantly white financial industry. They are always looking for a reason to tear someone like him down. If he goes bankrupt, the media will attack him relentlessly. They will turn it into a massive spectacle about race and incompetence, and it will permanently destroy our family's reputation. You have a moral duty to prevent this. You have to protect your brother-in-law from being a victim of the press." The audacity of his manipulation is almost breathtaking. He is actually trying to weaponize systemic racial injustice to cover up a textbook Ponzi scheme. He expects me to feel guilty, to fold under the pressure of social justice optics, completely ignoring the fact that Jamal stole millions of dollars from innocent investors to buy leased Rolexes and sports cars. I look down at the heavy 100-page risk assessment report in my hands. It details every single illegal wire transfer, every hidden offshore shell company, and every falsified client statement Jamal submitted over the past 3 years. I look back up at Thomas, feeling absolutely nothing but clinical disgust. I raise the heavy-bound report and slam it directly into Thomas's chest. The impact forces him to stumble backward. He clumsily tries to catch the document, but it slips through his fingers, hitting the marble floor and bursting open. Pages of damning financial data, highlighted routing numbers, and SEC warning flags scatter across the pristine lobby. "Financial fraud is a federal crime," Thomas restate, my voice ringing out with icy, unyielding precision. "It is not a racial injustice issue. Jamal is not being targeted by the media because of his skin color. He is being targeted by the Securities and Exchange Commission because he is a criminal who misappropriated client capital to fund his own arrogant lifestyle." Thomas stares down at the scattered pages, his eyes wide as he recognizes the official government letterheads and audit summaries. "Do not you ever come into my building and try to manipulate me with manufactured outrage." I continue, taking a step closer so he has to look at me. "Your son-in-law built a house of cards and it just caught fire. The Rothschild family will not give you $4, let alone $4 million. And if you think you can use my upcoming marriage as an ATM to bail out a felon, you are even more delusional than my mother." Thomas is completely speechless. He drops to his knees on the marble floor, his hands trembling as he frantically tries to gather the scattered pages of the risk report, as if holding the paper will somehow change the reality of the numbers printed on them. He looks up at me from the floor, his face devoid of all color. "You are going to let him go to prison," Thomas whispers the realization, finally breaking through his arrogance. You are going to let our family be destroyed. You destroyed yourselves, I reply coldly. I turn to the head of security, who has been standing silently a few feet away. Please escort this man off the premises. If he returns, have him arrested for trespassing. I do not wait to watch them drag him out. I turn my back on my biological father and walk to the elevator. The doors slide shut, sealing away his frantic, pathetic scrambling. The trap I set yesterday is now fully operational. By purchasing their leveraged debt through my anonymous subsidiary, I hold the absolute legal right to seize their remaining assets, leaving them perfectly positioned for the final devastating blow. The tactical retreat Thomas makes from my lobby is not a surrender. It is merely a shift in strategy. Driven by the primal suffocating fear of federal prison and total bankruptcy, my biological family resorts to the only arena where they still believe they hold absolute power. They pivot to the court of public opinion. By the time I return to my penthouse that evening, my phone is vibrating with an unending, frantic stream of notifications. The smear campaign has officially launched. Brittany has always fancied herself a social media influencer, constantly chasing viral fame with shallow aesthetic posts. Now she leverages her modest following to execute a meticulously planned character assassination. I sit on my velvet sofa, Liam beside me, and pull up her latest video on my tablet. Brittany is sitting on a worn, unfamiliar couch, likely a stage set designed to look suitably impoverished. She has completely stripped off her usual heavy makeup to appear raw and vulnerable. Her hair is tied in a messy, chaotic knot. She stares directly into the camera lens, tears welling perfectly in her eyes, her voice trembling with practiced emotion. I never wanted to bring family drama to the internet, Brittany says, wiping a manufactured tear from her cheek. But my family is completely broken and we are out of options. My older sister Olivia is getting married in 2 days to a member of the Rothschild family, and she has banned us from attending her wedding. She pauses, letting the tragic silence hang for the algorithm. What the media does not know is that Olivia suffered a severe mental breakdown 6 years ago. My parents drained their life savings, trying to get her the psychological help she desperately needed. It nearly bankrupted our family. Instead of being grateful, she abandoned us. She changed her entire identity. She preyed on a wealthy man hiding her past and discarding the loving family that sacrificed everything to save her. Now that she is marrying into billions, she looks at us like we are trash, simply because we are struggling financially. She is ashamed of her roots. It is a staggering piece of fiction. Every single word is a calculated, mirrored inversion of the truth. Brittany paints herself as the loyal, heartbroken sibling and me as a predatory, unstable gold digger, but the performance does not end there. The camera angle shifts slightly, and Patricia enters the frame. She is wearing a faded, oversized cardigan I have never seen before, clutching a crumpled tissue to her chest. Her face is drawn into an expression of absolute, devastated sorrow. She looks directly into the lens, her voice cracking with manufactured grief. We do not want any of her new money, Patricia cries, delivering a performance worthy of a daytime soap opera. We do not care about the billionaire lifestyle or the fancy venues. We just want to attend our daughter's wedding. We love her so much despite her severe mental illness. We just want to see our little girl walk down the aisle. Please, Olivia, please let us be a family again. The video is a viral masterpiece. Within hours, it crosses 3 million views. The algorithm feeds voraciously on the drama, pushing the narrative of the greedy, toxic bride abandoning her humble, loving family. The comment sections across Instagram and TikTok turn into an absolute war zone of public outrage. My screen lights up with thousands of tags. Strangers from across the globe are flooding my business profiles and personal accounts with vitriol. They call me a sociopath. They brand me a ruthless gold digger who trapped a vulnerable billionaire. They demand that the Rothschild family investigate my background immediately, warning Liam that he is marrying a manipulative monster. Some comments even tag the Securities and Exchange Commission, demanding they look into my business practices, ironically blind to the fact that I am the one who just exposed Jamal's massive financial fraud. Cancel Olivia Rothschild becomes a trending topic by midnight. Dozens of reaction channels stitch Brittany's video, analyzing her fake tears as genuine trauma and diagnosing me with every personality disorder in the medical dictionary. They buy the narrative entirely. My biological family has successfully weaponized the internet's insatiable appetite for outrage, aiming a digital firing squad directly at my reputation. Liam pours 2 glasses of scotch and hands one to me. He watches the screen as another barrage of hateful comments rolls in. He does not look concerned. He looks fascinated watching them the same way a scientist observes a predictable chemical reaction under a microscope. They are incredibly committed to this delusion, Liam notes, taking a slow sip of his drink. To fabricate a mental illness and a fictional financial crisis in a public forum is a bold strategy. It crosses the line into criminal defamation. I take a sip of my scotch, feeling the warm burn slide down my throat. It is not bold, I reply, turning off my tablet and tossing it onto the coffee table. It is desperate. Thomas failed to extort the $4 million from me this morning in the lobby. Jamal is currently sitting in a federal holding cell. Their assets are frozen, and they are facing total inescapable ruin. This video is not a plea for family reunification. It is a hostage situation. I look at the dark screen of the tablet. They are holding my public reputation at ransom. My mother assumes Diana Rothschild will panic at the sight of bad press. Patricia believes the elite circles of New York operate purely on the fear of public embarrassment. She thinks the Rothschilds will quietly wire the $4 million just to silence Brittany and preserve their pristine public image before the wedding ceremony. Liam chuckles, a dark, rich sound that fills the quiet penthouse. They really have no idea how my mother operates, do they? None whatsoever, I agree. My phone vibrates on the table. It is a direct message from Brittany. The notification glows brightly in the dimly lit room. I open it to find a single line of text. Wire the funds to the account Jamal gave you, and the videos disappear. Do it by tomorrow morning, or I do a live interview with a major tabloid outlet. There it is. The extortion is now formally in writing. They have handed me the exact rope I need to hang them. I do not feel anger. I do not feel shame over the millions of strangers currently despising me online. The verified data tells a completely different story, and data does not care about viral outrage. I open my laptop, bypassing the chaotic social media applications entirely. I access the encrypted server containing my risk management firm's finalized debt acquisition files. I confirm that the secondary market transfer of Thomas's mortgage is complete and legally binding. I confirm that Jamal's desperate creditors have officially signed over his $4 million deficit to my holding company. I now own their entire financial existence. Let them scream on the internet, I say, closing the laptop with a decisive click. Tomorrow morning we take everything. The dawn breaks over the Manhattan skyline, casting a cold, metallic light through the floor-to-ceiling windows of my penthouse. I have not slept. Sleep is a luxury reserved for those who are not actively executing a financial siege. I stand at the kitchen island, a mug of black coffee in my hand, watching the digital numbers on the global market ticker scroll across my laptop screen. The viral firestorm that Brittany ignited online is still burning through the internet. Her tearful, fabricated video has now crossed 12 million views. The comments section remains a toxic wasteland of strangers demanding my head on a platter. They are completely consumed by the narrative of the tragic abandoned family and the ruthless gold-digging bride. Let them type. Let them scream into the digital void. They are looking at shadows on a wall while the real war is being waged in bank routing numbers and federal wire transfers. Liam walks into the kitchen already dressed in a sharp charcoal suit. He checks his phone, his thumb swiping past dozens of Google alerts bearing our names. He pours himself a cup of coffee and leans against the marble counter. They have escalated, Liam states, his voice devoid of any surprise. I look up from my spreadsheets. Brittany posted another video. Liam shakes his head, a cold, predatory smile touching the corners of his mouth. No. Your mother decided to bypass the social media circus. She went straight for the crown. She emailed my mother. The sheer audacity of the move forces a genuine hollow laugh from my chest. Patricia, emboldened by the millions of sympathetic likes and comments generated by Britney's digital performance, has severely miscalculated her own leverage. She genuinely believes that the viral outrage has backed the Rothschild family into a corner. In her small suburban mind, billionaire dynasties operate on the fear of public embarrassment. She assumes Diana Rothschild is nothing more than a fragile society matriarch, terrified of tabloid gossip and willing to pay any price to sweep a scandal under the rug before a high-profile wedding. My phone vibrates on the marble counter. The caller ID displays a secure encrypted line. It is Diana. I answer on the first ring, putting the call on speaker so Liam can hear. "Good morning, Olivia," Diana says. Her voice is crisp, perfectly modulated, and entirely devoid of panic. "Good morning, Diana. I understand my biological mother has decided to introduce herself." I can hear the quiet rustle of heavy cardstock over the line. "Introduce is a polite word for it," Diana replies, her tone dripping with aristocratic amusement. "I am currently sitting in my study, reading an incredibly poorly drafted extortion demand that bypassed 3 layers of my corporate firewall at 4 o'clock this morning. It seems your mother managed to acquire my private executive email address. I must admit I am almost impressed by her persistence, though her grammar leaves much to be desired." "Read it to me," I request, leaning forward against the counter. Diana clears her throat. It reads as follows. "Dear Mrs. Rothschild, by now you have seen the news and the videos about your future daughter-in-law. Our family has protected Olivia's dark secrets for years. She is deeply unstable and left a trail of financial and emotional destruction in our lives. We have medical records detailing her psychiatric breakdowns. We are prepared to release these documents to the press and give an exclusive live interview to the tabloids tonight. However, we do not want to ruin your family's reputation on the eve of the wedding. If you wire $4 million to the attached routing number by 9 o'clock this morning, we will delete the videos, sign non-disclosure agreements, and you will never hear from us again. Consider this a necessary fee to keep your family name clean." The silence in the kitchen is absolute. Liam stares at the phone, his eyes dark with a terrifying kind of anger. I feel a familiar icy calm wash over my entire nervous system. Patricia has not just crossed a line, she has documented her own felony in writing and sent it across state lines to a corporate server. She attached a routing number I ask, already pulling up my risk management software. "She did," Diana confirms. "A domestic business account registered to your father, Thomas. It appears Jamal's offshore accounts have already been fully frozen by the federal authorities, so they are using Thomas as the designated drop for the ransom. They want $4 million. I suppose that is exactly the amount required to cover the margin call you purchased yesterday." "It is," I confirm. They are completely cornered. Jamal is likely facing indictment. Thomas's house is secretly mortgaged to my holding company and their credit is destroyed. This email is a blind, desperate swing in the dark. They think you will panic and pay them out of petty social fear. A sharp, melodic laugh echoes over the speaker. Diana Rothschild does not panic. She orchestrates hostile takeovers of international banks. She liquidates multinational conglomerates before breakfast. The idea that she would be intimidated by a suburban housewife wielding fake medical records and a TikTok video is the most entertaining thing she has encountered all week. "I have dealt with Russian oligarchs, cartel money launderers, and corrupt prime ministers," Diana says, her voice dropping to a register that is sharp as a freshly honed knife. "And your mother thinks she can blackmail me for $4 million to protect my social standing. She thinks she has you trapped," I reply. "I got the letter," Diana states, the amusement vanishing, instantly replaced by the ruthless precision that built the Rothschild empire. They are digging their own graves. Time to close the net. "I agree completely," I say, my fingers flying across my laptop keyboard. "I have the secondary market deeds right here. I am initiating the foreclosure protocol on Thomas's property immediately. The debt is currently in default due to the cross-default clauses triggered by Jamal's frozen assets. As for the extortion email, I assume your legal team has already preserved the metadata. My legal team forwarded the email to the Federal Bureau of Investigation 10 minutes ago, Diana replies smoothly. Extortion, blackmail, and wire fraud. We are adding it directly to Jamal's existing federal indictment, and we are naming Patricia and Thomas as co-conspirators. They wanted a wealthy family. Now they have the full terrifying weight of one. Thank you, Diana, I say softly. Do not thank me, Olivia. You laid the groundwork beautifully. I am simply releasing the hounds. Finish your coffee. We have a wedding to attend tomorrow. The line clicks dead. I look at Liam. He reaches over and closes my laptop. It is done, he says quietly. It is done. While the internet continues to scream at me, while millions of strangers demand my downfall, the reality of the physical world is shifting with brutal finality. 50 miles away in their quiet suburban home, Patricia and Thomas are likely sitting in their living room watching the clock tick closer to 9 in the morning. They are probably drinking their cheap coffee, celebrating their brilliant tactical maneuver. They truly believe they have outsmarted the system. They believe their viral video has granted them infinite power. They have absolutely no idea that they have not blackmailed a timid, image-obsessed socialite. They do not realize they have just provoked one of the most powerful, unyielding, and ruthless women on Wall Street. Their greed has blinded them to the shadows moving in around them. They are celebrating their victory, completely oblivious to the fact that the executioner is already walking up their driveway. The executioner does not arrive with a weapon drawn. The executioner arrives in the form of absolute, unyielding reality. 24 hours before the rehearsal dinner, I am standing in the grand ballroom of the Ritz-Carlton. The space is a cavernous masterpiece of gilded mirrors, crystal chandeliers, and cascading white orchids. I am reviewing the final lighting schematics with the event coordinator when the head of hotel security approaches me, his posture rigid with professional urgency. He informs me that 4 individuals matching the descriptions on my restricted access list have just bypassed the valets and entered the main lobby. They are currently at the reception desk, demanding room keys and charging privileges. I thank him, hand my tablet to the coordinator, and make my way toward the lobby mezzanine. I do not rush. Panic is for people who do not control the board. From the balcony overlooking the opulent marble reception area, I look down and see my biological family. They have arrived with the breathtaking arrogance of people who believe they have already won the war. Thomas stands with his chest puffed out, wearing a tailored suit that looks desperate rather than distinguished. Jamal is beside him, shifting his weight nervously, constantly checking his phone, praying to see a notification that $4 million has miraculously appeared in his frozen holding account. Patricia and Brittany, however, are absolutely reveling in the moment. They are surrounded by matched sets of designer luggage. They clearly spared no expense booking first-class flights from their suburban enclave to New York City, fully convinced that the Rothschild family is footing the bill. Brittany has her phone out, angling it to capture the lavish hotel interior while maintaining the sad, tragic expression she perfected for her viral videos. I walk down the sweeping carpeted staircase, my footsteps silent. As I approach the rear of the reception area, Patricia's shrill, demanding voice echoes against the marble pillars. I do not understand why this is so complicated, Patricia snaps at the bewildered concierge. We are the parents of the bride. We have 2 executive suites reserved under the name Wilson. You are to issue our keycards immediately and place all room service, spa treatments, and incidental charges directly onto the bride's master account. The concierge, a model of polite restraint, taps his keyboard. I apologize, madam, but your names are explicitly listed on the restricted access protocol. Furthermore, I have strict instructions that no unauthorized charges are to be applied to the Rothschild master account. I require a personal credit card to secure your booking. Patricia slams her hand flat on the polished mahogany counter. You will do no such thing. Do you have any idea who we are? We are the most important guests at this wedding. Brittany leans in close to her mother, lowering her phone for a fraction of a second. Her voice is a harsh, conspiratorial whisper, but it carries clearly in the quiet lobby. Do not worry, Mom. She is terrified of the public backlash. Half the internet is calling for her to be canceled right now. She wouldn't dare kick us out. She knows if she makes a scene, I will go live to 3 million people and ruin this entire billionaire wedding. Patricia nods, a smug, triumphant smile spreading across her face. Exactly, she whispers back. Diana Rothschild got my email this morning. They are probably wiring the money right now just to shut us up. They are cornered. I step out from behind the marble pillar and walk directly up to the reception desk. The concierge exhales a quiet sigh of relief and steps back. You are entirely incorrect, Patricia. I say, my voice cutting through their delusions like shattered glass. No one is cornered except the four of you. Patricia spins around. For a brief second she looks startled, but her arrogant smirk quickly returns. She crosses her arms over her chest, looking me up and down. Olivia, how nice of you to finally greet your family. I assume you are here to instruct this clerk to give us our suites. We had a lovely first-class flight, but we are quite tired and Jamal needs to check his bank accounts. I trust your future mother-in-law received my correspondence. She did, I reply smoothly, maintaining absolute eye contact. She read every single poorly spelled, legally incriminating word of your extortion demand, and then she forwarded it directly to the Cybercrimes Division of the Federal Bureau of Investigation. The smug smile slides right off Patricia's face. Her arms drop to her sides. What are you talking about? I turn my attention to Thomas, who has suddenly gone entirely rigid. Blackmail and wire fraud are federal offenses, Thomas. When your wife sent an email demanding $4 million to a corporate server attaching a domestic routing number registered in your name, she documented a felony. The FBI is currently tracking the IP address of that email. They are pulling the records on Jamal's offshore shell companies as we speak. Jamal makes a strangled, choking sound. He takes a frantic step backward, bumping into a bellhop's luggage cart. You did not wire the money, Jamal asks, his voice cracking with sheer terror. The margin call was due at 9. My accounts are in default. I look at him with absolute clinical detachment. Your accounts are not just in default, Jamal. They have been seized. Yesterday afternoon, an anonymous subsidiary purchased your leveraged debt on the secondary market. I own your debt. And because you failed to cover the $4 million deficit this morning, I have officially executed the seizure of your remaining assets. You have absolutely nothing left. You are completely bankrupt, and the SEC investigators will be waiting for you when you return home, assuming you are not arrested at the airport first. Brittany lifts her phone, her hands shaking violently. You cannot do this. I will record this. I will post it everywhere. The whole internet hates you. They know you are a monster. Post it. Brittany. I challenge her, stepping closer, so my face fills her camera screen. Go live right now. Show your 3 million followers exactly what happens when a family of frauds tries to extort a Wall Street dynasty. Tell them how Jamal stole millions from his clients. Tell them how Thomas allowed his suburban home to be secretly mortgaged to cover a Ponzi scheme. Tell them that because you defaulted on that cross-collateralized loan this morning, the foreclosure process on your parents' house has already begun. Thomas lets out a guttural gasp, clutching his chest. You foreclosed on my house. My house. It is my house now, Thomas. I state, my voice dropping to a glacial chill. You bet your entire financial existence on Jamal's lies, and you lost. I turn back to the concierge, who is watching the exchange with wide, fascinated eyes. Please cancel their reservations completely, I instruct him. They do not have the funds to cover a glass of water from the minibar, let alone an executive suite. Patricia is trembling, her face a mask of absolute horror. She looks at the opulent lobby, the crystal chandeliers, and the life of luxury she thought she was about to steal. She finally realizes the magnitude of her mistake. She tried to play a game of ruthless corporate blackmail, armed with nothing but a TikTok account and a monumental sense of entitlement. I signal to the head of security, who immediately steps forward with 3 large, broad-shouldered guards. Escort these people off the property, I command. If they attempt to enter the building again, call the police and have them charged with criminal trespassing. The security guards move in, forming a solid wall between me and my former family. Patricia begins to sob, true panicked tears replacing her fabricated performance. Thomas is paralyzed, staring blankly at the marble floor as the reality of his homelessness sets in. Jamal turns and practically sprints toward the exit, terrified that federal agents might already be waiting in the valet lane. Brittany lowers her phone, the screen going dark, as the guards physically corral them toward the revolving doors. They are pushed out onto the unforgiving Manhattan pavement, stripped of their money, their home, and their dignity, exactly as I promised. The cold, biting wind of the Manhattan street hits them the moment the heavy glass doors of the Ritz-Carlton swing shut. They stand on the pavement, surrounded by pedestrians and blaring yellow cabs, looking like a group of displaced aristocrats who have just been stripped of their titles. Jamal is the first to completely break. He pulls out his phone, his hands shaking so violently he drops the device twice before managing to unlock it. He opens his banking application, staring at the screen with wide, bloodshot eyes. It is zero. Jamal gasps, his voice cracking into a high-pitched whine. Everything is gone. The personal accounts, the business holding funds, the emergency reserves. It all says zero. She actually took it all. Patricia lets out a sharp, hysterical shriek, ignoring the stares of passing tourists. She turns on Thomas, grabbing the lapels of his expensive rumpled suit. You fix this right now, Thomas. Do you hear me? You are the head of this family. I will not stand on a dirty sidewalk like a beggar. Brittany has 3 million people waiting to see our luxury suite. We need money. We need a hotel. We need to get Jamal a lawyer before the federal agents find him. Do something. Thomas forcefully peels her hands off his jacket, his chest heaving as he struggles to maintain his crumbling authority. His narcissistic pride cannot process the reality of his defeat. His mind, wired by decades of manipulation and entitlement, instantly begins to construct an alternate reality. He refuses to accept that the quiet, obedient daughter he treated like garbage has outmaneuvered him. She is bluffing about the timeline, Thomas growls, straightening his tie with trembling fingers. Olivia might have filed the foreclosure paperwork, but the county clerk takes weeks to process a secondary market transfer. The system is slow. On paper right now, in the public registry, I still own that house. I still hold the physical deed. Brittany stops wiping her tear-streaked face. What does that mean, Dad? We do not have any cash right now. It means I know how to get bridge capital. Thomas says, his eyes darting down the busy avenue as he spots an empty taxi. We just need enough liquidity to secure Jamal a defense attorney book, a luxury suite to maintain your social media facade, and keep us in the game for the next 48 hours. Get in the cab. 30 minutes later, the taxi drops Thomas in front of a grim, heavily fortified building in the Diamond District. He leaves Patricia, Brittany, and a hyperventilating Jamal in the idling vehicle, stepping into a humid, dimly lit office hidden behind a jewelry exchange. This is the domain of shadow capital. It is a place where desperate men go when traditional banks lock their doors. Thomas sits across a scarred metal desk from a man named Victor, a hard money lender who specializes in unregulated, exorbitant, and completely ruthless private equity loans. The air in the small room smells of stale cigar smoke and cheap cologne, a violent contrast to the floral arrangements at the Ritz-Carlton. I need $500,000 in immediate liquid cash, Thomas states, trying to project the aura of a confident, wealthy investor rather than a desperate, cornered man. It is a short-term liquidity issue due to a delayed corporate merger. I will pay it back by Monday morning. Victor leans back in his leather chair, steepling his fingers. He does not ask for credit scores. He does not ask for income verification. He only cares about leverage. Short-term liquidity issues are expensive. Victor replies smoothly. If I wire you $500,000 today, the interest rate is 30% compounding weekly, and I need hard physical collateral. No stocks, no promises, tangible assets. Thomas reaches into his leather briefcase. He pulls out the original notarized deed to his sprawling suburban estate, sliding it across the metal desk. The property is appraised at over $2 million. It is completely paid off. It is an act of staggering criminal desperation. Thomas knows Olivia's holding company has already seized the debt, but he is betting his freedom on the fact that the digital transfer has not yet cleared the local municipal records. He is essentially committing mortgage fraud to secure a loan from a criminal syndicate. Victor picks up the deed, inspecting the embossed seal. He types a few commands into his computer, running a rapid, superficial public records check. Finding no immediate red flags, he smiles, revealing a row of stained teeth. "I will approve the bridge loan," Victor says, sliding a thick stack of promissory notes across the desk. "But understand this, Thomas. If you do not deliver the principal and the interest by Monday, I do not send collection letters. I simply take the house, and I take it forcefully." "I will have your money on Sunday," Thomas replies, grabbing a pen. He signs the predatory contract without reading the fine print, pressing so hard, the ink bleeds through the pages. The transaction is finalized in minutes. Victor authorizes a wire transfer to a secure, untraceable account Thomas controls, circumventing Jamal's frozen assets entirely. When Thomas returns to the waiting taxi, his posture has completely transformed. The crushing terror from the hotel lobby has been replaced by a manic, delusional euphoria. He holds up his phone, showing Jamal and Patricia the massive available balance now reflecting in his private account. "We are back," Thomas announces, a terrifying smile stretching across his face. Patricia lets out a loud gasp of relief, while Brittany immediately opens her camera app to check her reflection. Jamal stares at the screen, wiping a layer of cold sweat from his neck. "How did you get $500,000? How are we going to pay that back? We have nothing." Thomas laughs, a hollow, echoing sound that fills the cramped taxi. "We do not have to pay it back. Olivia is going to pay it back. She thinks she can throw us out into the street and get away with it. She thinks she has won because she has some fancy paperwork. But she is forgetting one crucial detail. She is marrying a billionaire in a highly publicized, incredibly vulnerable social event." He leans forward, his eyes burning with absolute certainty. "We are going to book the best suite at the Plaza Hotel right now. Brittany is going to continue posting videos showing that we are still wealthy and unbothered, and tomorrow night we are walking right through the front doors of the Rothschild wedding reception. I just need to corner Olivia at the wedding and force her to sign a check." Patricia nods enthusiastically, her greed instantly blinding her to the danger. "Exactly. Diana Rothschild will never allow her precious high society guests to witness a screaming match with the bride's impoverished family. They hate scandals. They will pay us whatever we want just to make us leave quietly." Thomas confirms, staring out the window at the passing city. "I will demand $10 million. We will pay off the loan. We will pay Jamal's SEC fines, and we will walk away richer than before. She tried to play a game of power with me, but she forgot who taught her the rules. I am going to break her in front of the entire city." High above the filthy, frantic streets of Manhattan, my corner office is a sanctuary of absolute silence and climate-controlled precision. The panoramic glass walls offer a sweeping view of the financial district, a physical representation of the world I now command. I am not spending the Friday before my wedding obsessing over floral arrangements, seating charts, or rehearsal dinner menus. I am sitting behind a slab of polished obsidian, watching a real-time data terminal track the microscopic shifts in global debt markets. My chief risk officer, Sterling, taps lightly on the glass door before stepping into the room. He does not carry a clipboard or a notepad. He carries a single encrypted tablet, and his expression is a mask of clinical, professional fascination. He paces across the thick carpeting, places the tablet on the obsidian desk, and slides it precisely into my line of sight. "Your father has just done something remarkably suicidal." Sterling states, his voice perfectly level. "Our monitoring algorithms just flagged a new high-yield lien registered against the suburban estate. He bypassed traditional banking entirely. He took the physical deed to a shadow equity syndicate in the Diamond District and secured a $500,000 bridge loan, 30% interest compounding weekly." I stare at the digital readout on the tablet. A cold, genuine smile touches the corners of my mouth. Thomas's desperation has completely overridden his basic financial literacy. He actually believes that holding a piece of embossed paper means he owns the house, entirely ignorant of the fact that my holding company initiated the quiet acquisition of his primary mortgage 36 hours ago. By pledging an already compromised asset to a criminal syndicate, he has not just defaulted on a loan. He has committed textbook, undeniable federal mortgage fraud. He thinks this $500,000 is his war chest. I say, leaning back in my leather chair and resting my hands on the armrests. He believes it will buy him enough time to crash my wedding reception and force me to write a check to cover his tracks. He actually thinks he is playing chess. He is playing Russian roulette with a fully loaded chamber. Sterling replies dryly, tapping a line of data on the screen. The syndicate that issued this bridge loan is ruthless. If he defaults on Monday, they will not bother with a court order or a polite collection letter. They will physically remove him from the property using whatever force they deem necessary. Do we let them take the house? Absolutely not, I reply, my voice dropping to a sharp, commanding pitch. That house is the epicenter of their delusion. It is the monument to my mother's vanity and my father's fake supremacy. I will not have some bottom-feeding loan shark fighting my legal team for the scraps. I want total, undisputed control over every single liability attached to their names. Instruct our anonymous subsidiary Vanguard Risk Management to approach the syndicate immediately. I point to the glowing numbers on the terminal. Offer to buy the predatory note at a 20% premium. Cash transfer cleared within the hour. They are loan sharks, not real estate developers. They will take the guaranteed profit and hand over the paper without asking a single question. Sterling taps a command into his earpiece, relaying the instructions directly to our trading floor. Within seconds, the wheels of a multi-million-dollar financial machine begin to turn. The syndicate, smelling easy, risk-free money, agrees to flip the predatory loan to Vanguard Risk Management. The digital signatures are verified, and the capital is wired. At the exact same time, Sterling receives a secondary alert on his monitor. He looks up, his eyes locking onto mine. The institutional brokers have officially capitulated on Jamal's margin accounts. Sterling reports, his fingers flying across his keyboard to finalize the incoming data. His hedge fund is completely insolvent. The brokers were desperate to offload the toxic debt before the SEC publicly froze the entire firm and launched a federal investigation. Vanguard Risk Management has successfully purchased his $4 million margin deficit for pennies on the dollar. The transfer is complete. We now hold the exclusive rights to collect. I look out the glass walls at the sprawling city below. My biological family spent decades trying to make me feel small, powerless, and dependent. They built their entire identities on the illusion of superiority, funded by lies and sustained by breathtaking arrogance. They treated me like a disposable asset, a quiet servant meant to endure their abuse and applaud their mediocrity. Now, sitting in an office they could never afford to step foot in, I have systematically bought their entire existence on the secondary market. I own Thomas's fraudulent high-interest bridge loan. I own the primary mortgage to the house Patricia worships like a temple. I own the crushing, unpayable margin debt that will send Jamal to federal prison. Every single dollar they owe, every legal obligation they possess, leads directly back to a shell corporation controlled entirely by me. I turn my attention back to the tablet resting on my desk. The consolidated debt acquisition contracts are fully loaded and awaiting executive authorization. There is no hesitation. There is no lingering guilt, no sudden surge of familial loyalty, and no desire to offer them a second chance. I place my finger on the digital scanner, verifying my biometric signature, and hit the approval icon. The screen flashes green. The acquisition is instantly recorded in the Federal Registry. We have secured the absolute legal right to execute immediate, uncompromising asset recovery. I reach over to my desk console and press a single illuminated button. In the far corner of my office, the heavy commercial-grade laser printer hums to life. The sound is mechanical, rhythmic, and incredibly satisfying. Crisp white pages begin to slide into the output tray one after another. They are not mere financial summaries or audit reports. They are official, legally binding orders of immediate foreclosure, asset seizure, and debt acceleration. The ink is fresh, detailing the absolute, inescapable ruin of Thomas, Patricia, Brittany, and Jamal. I stand up, walk over to the printer, and pick up the warm stack of documents. The paper feels heavy in my hands, holding the weight of 26 years of silent endurance. The trap is no longer just set. The trap has snapped shut. The locks are sealed and they are entirely trapped inside it. Across town, blissfully unaware of the financial execution order sitting in my outbox, Patricia and Thomas are holding court in a sprawling penthouse suite at the Plaza Hotel. The $500,000 bridge loan Thomas secured from the Diamond District Syndicate has completely erased the panic they experienced on the sidewalk earlier that afternoon. They are back in their element, intoxicated by the smell of fresh capital and the velvet-lined walls of their temporary palace. Thomas is standing by the floor-to-ceiling windows looking out at Central Park, a glass of bourbon in his hand. He is already lecturing Patricia on how they will invest the $10 million they plan to extort from me tomorrow. He speaks of real estate portfolios and offshore accounts with the unearned confidence of a man who has just signed away his soul. Patricia is reclining on a velvet chaise lounge, scrolling through Britney's social media feed, calculating how many new followers the wedding scandal will generate. She is already imagining the forced smiles Diana Rothschild will have to offer her when they finally stand face to face in front of the press. Jamal is pacing the living area, running his hands over the expensive upholstery. The anxiety of his SEC violations and frozen assets has been temporarily muffled by the sheer luxury of the room. He decides to celebrate their impending victory. He picks up the suite's gilded telephone and connects directly to the concierge desk. He does not ask for a menu. He demands 3 bottles of Dom Perignon vintage, sent up immediately, along with a tin of beluga caviar. He speaks to the hotel staff with the dripping condescension of a man who believes he is invincible, barking orders and demanding priority service. 20 minutes later, a silver cart is wheeled into the suite by a uniformed attendant. The champagne sits in sweating silver buckets. Jamal eagerly signs the receipt and hands the attendant his premium platinum credit card to cover the exorbitant incidental charges. The attendant swipes the card through a mobile terminal. The machine emits a sharp negative beep. The attendant frowns, tries it again, and gets the same harsh tone. "I apologize, sir," the attendant says politely. "The card has been declined." Jamal's face flushes a dark, angry red. He snatches the card back. "That is impossible. It is a limitless account. Run it again." The attendant complies. The machine beeps a third time. The message on the screen is clear. "Account frozen. Please contact the institution." Patricia scoffs from her lounge chair, waving her hand in the air. "Oh, for heaven's sake," Jamal just used the new card Thomas set up with the bridge loan funds. "We have $500,000 sitting in cash. We do not have time to deal with bank security triggers." Thomas pulls a temporary debit card from his wallet and tosses it to Jamal. The attendant processes the new card. A heavy, suffocating silence fills the room as the terminal processes the transaction. Then the same sharp negative beep echoes off the high ceilings. The attendant looks up, visibly uncomfortable. "Sir, this card is also declining. It says the assets have been seized by the issuing institution." Thomas drops his glass of bourbon. It shatters against the thick Persian rug, amber liquid soaking into the fibers. "That is a mistake," Thomas roars, marching toward the attendant. "Your machine is broken. I just deposited $500,000 into that account this afternoon. Run the numbers manually." "Do you know who I am?" The attendant types the numbers in by hand. Declined. Seized. Vanguard Risk Management. They have absolutely no idea what Vanguard Risk Management is. They do not know it is My Shadow Corporation, the very entity that just bought their debt and accelerated the collection protocol. They just assume it is a banking error, a temporary glitch in the system caused by Thomas's rapid transfer of unregulated funds. "Take your broken machine out of my suite," Patricia snaps, standing up and pointing a manicured finger at the door. "You are embarrassing yourselves. You are ruining our evening with your incompetence." Jamal grabs a bottle of the champagne by the neck, refusing to let the attendant take it back. "Leave the bottles," Jamal commands, his voice dripping with absolute unearned arrogance. "Put it on the room tab. Tomorrow morning my sister-in-law is going to pay for everything. She is marrying a Rothschild. She will buy this entire hotel if we tell her to." The attendant, unwilling to argue with unhinged guests, bows slightly and abandons the cart, retreating from the suite. The family immediately pops the corks, toasting to their own brilliance, drinking stolen champagne purchased on a seized account, completely blind to the fact that their financial oxygen has already been cut off. They spend the rest of the night laughing, drafting the exact ultimatums they plan to deliver to me in front of the wedding guests. They are so consumed by their greed, They do not even bother to check their email, where the official notices of total asset seizure and property foreclosure are currently sitting unread. The sun rises on the day of the wedding. In the plaza suite, the atmosphere is electric with malicious excitement. They spend hours getting ready, preparing for the greatest performance of their lives. Patricia forces herself into a tight emerald green evening gown she purchased on credit months ago. She adjusts a heavy fake diamond necklace, practicing her benevolent, forgiving mother smile in the mirror. Thomas wrestles with a rented tuxedo that is slightly too tight across the shoulders, rehearsing the stern, patriarchal tone he plans to use when he corners me in the ballroom. Brittany spends 2 hours perfecting a look of innocent tragedy, making sure her mascara is just smudged enough to look genuine for her inevitable live stream. Jamal drowns himself in expensive cologne to mask the nervous sweat still clinging to his skin. They look at themselves in the gilded mirrors and see royalty. They see a family about to conquer the upper echelons of Manhattan society. They step onto the elevator, their heads held high, adjusting their formal wear. They march out of the hotel and into the waiting town car, giving the driver the address of the grand reception venue. They are adjusting their cuffs and smoothing their skirts, entirely ready to play the ultimate game of the loving, reunited family for the cameras. They are marching straight toward the grand ballroom, wrapped in their delusions of absolute victory, completely unaware that the executioner's blade is already resting against their necks. The black town car glides to a stop in front of the grand reception venue, a historic palatial estate overlooking the city skyline. The heavy iron gates are flanked by private security, but as Thomas steps out of the vehicle and aggressively drops the Rothschild name, the guards do not stop him. They do not ask for identification. They simply step aside and open the path. Thomas smirks, adjusting his rented tuxedo jacket, entirely convinced that his manufactured authority has intimidated the staff. He does not possess the strategic capacity to realize that a fortress only leaves its gates open when it wants the enemy to step inside. Patricia follows him, clutching a beaded evening bag, her eyes darting eagerly around the manicured courtyard. During the ride over, she secretly messaged a contact at a major tabloid, promising them an unprecedented, scandalous scoop at the wedding of the decade. She sees the flash of camera lenses hidden among the designated press pen near the entrance. She instructed them to wait for her signal. She wants witnesses. She wants a public audience to ensure Olivia is completely paralyzed by the fear of social ruin. Jamal and Brittany walk behind their parents, their faces flushed with arrogant anticipation. Jamal is already calculating the exact offshore accounts where he will deposit his share of the $10 million extortion payout. Brittany holds her phone at the perfect angle, checking her lighting, ready to broadcast her triumphant, victimized narrative to millions of strangers. They stride past the velvet ropes and into the grand foyer, their chests puffed out, intoxicated by their own delusions. The heavy mahogany doors leading to the main ballroom stand open. The four of them step over the threshold, and the sheer, overwhelming magnitude of the room momentarily silences them. This is not a standard society gathering. This is an assembly of global power. 300 of the most influential figures in finance, politics, and industry stand beneath cascading crystal chandeliers. The air is thick with the scent of white orchids and the low, refined murmur of old money. Waiters in white gloves circulate with silver trays of champagne. The wealth in this single room is unfathomable, making Thomas's heavily leveraged suburban existence look absolutely pathetic. But Thomas misinterprets the atmosphere. He looks at the billionaires and titans of industry, and his narcissistic mind convinces him that he is their equal. He believes he is about to assert his dominance over all of them by breaking the bride in front of their very eyes. At the far end of the ballroom, standing on a raised marble dais, is Olivia. She is breathtaking, draped in a custom silk gown that moves like liquid glass. She is standing beside Harrison Rothschild, a man whose quiet, predatory stillness commands the entire room. They are surrounded by a circle of elite guests, projecting an aura of untouchable, unified power. Patricia spots the press members lingering near the ballroom entrance, cameras raised and ready. She knows this is her moment. She knows she must strike fast, creating a spectacle so loud and embarrassing that the Rothschild family will pay any price to silence her. She steps forward, pushing past a group of bewildered investment bankers. She throws her arms wide open, plastering a sickeningly sweet theatrical smile across her face. Her voice, shrill and demanding, shatters the elegant ambiance of the ballroom. "Darling daughter, Mom and Dad are here." The entire room goes dead silent. The string quartet abruptly stops playing. 300 heads turn simultaneously to watch the chaotic, poorly dressed woman marching toward the bride. Brittany immediately hits the live button on her social media account, framing the shot to capture her mother's fake affection. Thomas marches right behind his wife, his jaw set, preparing to lean in and whisper his $10 million demand the second Olivia crumbles into a panicked embrace. Patricia rushes up the steps of the marble dais, her arms reaching out to wrap Olivia in a fabricated display of maternal love. She expects Olivia to flinch, to look terrified, to quickly usher them into a back room to negotiate a payout. Olivia does not flinch. She does not look terrified. With absolute glacial precision, Olivia takes a single deliberate step backward. Patricia's hands grasp empty air. She stumbles forward slightly, her momentum broken by the sudden rejection. Her theatrical smile falters, her eyes widening in genuine confusion. She looks at Olivia, waiting for the fear to register. Instead, she finds herself staring into a pair of eyes that are completely devoid of emotion. Olivia looks at her biological mother, not with panic, but with the clinical detached observation of a scientist examining an insect. "What are you doing?" Patricia hisses under her breath, trying to maintain her smile for the cameras while her tone turns venomous. "Hug me right now. Do you want me to ruin you in front of all these people? We have the medical records. We have the videos. Thomas is going to ask your husband for $10 million, or we are going to burn this entire wedding to the ground." Olivia remains perfectly still. She does not whisper back. She does not negotiate. She simply holds Patricia's gaze, allowing the deafening silence of the ballroom to amplify the older woman's desperation. Thomas steps up onto the dais, his face flushing dark red. He realizes the emotional manipulation is failing, so he attempts to use physical intimidation. He steps dangerously close to Olivia, invading her personal space, pointing a rigid finger at her chest. "You listen to me right now," Thomas growls, his voice carrying clearly in the quiet room. "You are going to sign a check, or I am going to tell every single person in this room exactly what kind of psychotic, unstable girl Harrison just married." Before Thomas can finish his threat, Harrison moves. He does not shout. He does not lose his temper. Harrison simply steps in front of Olivia, shielding her completely. He looks at Thomas with an expression of such absolute terrifying authority that Thomas instinctively takes a step back. Harrison reaches into his jacket pocket and pulls out a small encrypted communication device. He does not break eye contact with Thomas. He raises his free hand and gives a single subtle nod to the perimeter of the room. The response is instantaneous and perfectly choreographed. At the back of the ballroom, the head of elite security touches his earpiece. A dozen men in tailored dark suits who had been blending seamlessly into the crowd move with sudden synchronized military precision. They march directly to the grand mahogany doors. With a heavy echoing thud that reverberates through the marble floors, the doors are pulled shut. The metallic clack of industrial deadbolts engaging sounds like a prison cell locking into place. The press members who Patricia had illegally invited inside are suddenly cordoned off by a secondary line of guards. They are not thrown out. They are explicitly allowed to stay, their cameras trapped inside the room, forced to document whatever is about to happen next. Jamal, standing near the dessert table, suddenly realizes the exits are blocked. He spins around, panic finally piercing through his arrogance. He grabs Brittany's arm, pulling her phone down. Brittany tears her arm away. "What are you doing? I am live. Look at the doors." Jamal breathes, his voice shaking with sudden primal terror. "Look at the guards. They locked us in." Patricia looks back at the sealed exits, the blood draining completely from her face. She turns back to Olivia and Harrison, her fake smile entirely gone, replaced by the dawning realization of a catastrophic miscalculation. They walked into this room believing they were the hunters, orchestrating a brilliant ambush. As the deadbolts secure the ballroom, the horrific truth finally settles over them. They did not ambush anyone. They willingly locked themselves inside an execution chamber. Patricia's panic lasts only a fraction of a second before her monumental ego overrides her survival instincts. She looks at the heavy, locked mahogany doors, then turns back to Olivia's icy expression. The realization that she is not in control does not humble her. It ignites a blind, explosive fury. The mask of the loving, reunited mother shatters, completely falling away to reveal the desperate, vicious woman underneath. She points a shaking, manicured finger directly at Olivia. Her voice reaches a shrill, piercing pitch that forces several nearby guests to physically recoil. "You marry a billionaire and despise your family!" Patricia screams, her chest heaving as she addresses the entire ballroom, abandoning any pretense of civility. "Today, you must write a $4 million check to pay off your brother-in-law's debt, or I will let everyone know your true face." Thomas steps up beside her, emboldened by his wife's escalating volume. He squares his shoulders, trying to look intimidating. Jamal shifts nervously, while Brittany instinctively raises her phone higher, making sure the camera angle captures every second of the meltdown for her live audience. They are entirely committed to the extortion, believing that public humiliation is their ultimate weapon. Absolute suffocating silence descends upon the grand ballroom. 300 titans of industry, political figures, and media moguls stop and stare at the screaming woman in the tight emerald green dress. They do not gasp in horror at the bride. They do not whisper in shocked judgment of Olivia. They look at Patricia with the cold, detached disdain reserved for a madwoman screaming on a subway platform. The air is thick with the scent of white orchids and the heavy, palpable weight of second-hand embarrassment. Olivia does not flush with shame. She does not cower behind her husband. She steps forward smoothly, her silk gown gliding over the marble steps, as she walks the short distance to the elegant podium set up for wedding toasts. She adjusts the microphone with deliberate, terrifying calm. A brief hum of feedback echoes off the crystal chandeliers, commanding the absolute attention of every single person in the room. True face. Olivia's voice projects through the massive surround sound system, smooth as glass and cold as liquid nitrogen. "You mean my refusal to pay off a fraudster's debt?" Jamal actually flinches, taking a physical step backward. Brittany's phone wavers in her trembling hands. Olivia leans closer to the microphone, her eyes sweeping over the trapped press corps near the foyer doors, before locking dead onto her biological family. Let us be perfectly clear for the benefit of the reporters eagerly recording this moment. My brother-in-law Jamal has not suffered a stroke of bad luck. He is currently under active investigation by the Securities and Exchange Commission for operating a grossly negligent hedge fund. He owes $4 million in toxic margin debt because he gambled with client funds, lost everything, and attempted to hide the deficit. "Shut your mouth!" Thomas roars, his face turning an alarming shade of purple as he charges toward the dais. Harrison shifts seamlessly, blocking Thomas's path with a casual but immovable stance. Two massive security guards step out of the shadows, placing their heavy hands firmly on Thomas's shoulders, halting his advance instantly. Thomas struggles for a moment, but the guards press down, forcing him to stand frozen in place. "And you," Olivia continues, her voice echoing powerfully off the vaulted ceilings, "you stand here aggressively demanding a multi-million-dollar payout, completely ignoring the fact that you bypassed traditional banking channels yesterday afternoon to secure a $500,000 bridge loan from an illegal shadow syndicate in the Diamond District." Low murmurs finally ripple through the crowd of elite guests. This is not petty, dramatic family infighting. These are federal crimes being broadcast live to the media and the highest echelons of society. Patricia's mouth opens and closes, but no sound comes out. She looks wildly at the reporters, realizing that Brittany's live stream and the trapped press corps are now documenting their federal offenses instead of Olivia's humiliation. The weapon she thought she wielded has been violently turned against her. "You pledged a suburban estate as collateral for that predatory loan," Olivia states, her tone merciless. "An estate that you no longer legally control. You committed undeniable textbook mortgage fraud to fund this pathetic extortion attempt." That is a lie, Patricia finally screeches, her voice cracking under the intense scrutiny of 300 silent billionaires. We own that house. We are your family, and you are trying to frame us because you are greedy. Olivia steps away from the podium and walks slowly down the marble steps, closing the distance between herself and her mother. She stops just inches away. The height difference combined with Olivia's absolute lack of fear makes Patricia look incredibly small and frail. You own nothing, Olivia says, choosing not to use the microphone now, but her voice carries perfectly in the dead silent room. You do not own the primary mortgage. You do not own the fraudulent bridge loan. Jamal does not own his $4 million margin deficit. Vanguard Risk Management owns every single liability attached to your names. Jamal's eyes widen in sheer unadulterated horror. The declined champagne, the seized accounts at the Plaza Hotel. He looks at Thomas, severe panic setting in. Thomas. The hotel card declined. The attendant said the accounts were seized by Vanguard Risk Management. It was them. Thomas stares at Jamal, his mind struggling to process the connection, the blood rushing in his ears. Vanguard Risk Management. Olivia says, a slow, razor-sharp smile touching her lips, is a subsidiary holding company completely owned and operated by me. A collective quiet realization washes over the room of financial titans. They understand the exact nature of what Olivia has done. It is a hostile takeover executed with flawless precision. They look at the bride not with pity, but with profound, genuine respect. She did not just deflect a crude extortion attempt. She bought her enemies and led them directly into a slaughterhouse. I own your debt. Olivia states her words, slicing through the heavy tension like a scalpel. I own your house. I own your future. You marched into my wedding reception, demanding a check, completely blind to the fact that I executed the total acceleration of your liabilities 20 minutes ago. Patricia begins to shake uncontrollably. Her emerald gown suddenly looks cheap, her fake diamonds dull and ridiculous. The reality of total inescapable ruin crashes down upon her. She reaches out a trembling hand toward Olivia, her eyes wide with terror. Darling, please. We are your family. Olivia slaps the hand away with a swift, violent motion that makes a sharp, cracking sound echo in the quiet space. You are not my family, Olivia replies, her voice dropping to a dangerous, uncompromising whisper. You are bad investments, and I have just decided to liquidate. The words hang in the freezing air of the ballroom, sharp and absolute. Patricia shrinks back, her emerald gown suddenly looking like a cheap costume under the glare of the crystal chandeliers. She opens her mouth to speak, to beg, to hurl another insult, but her voice completely fails her. Harrison steps smoothly to my side. He does not look at Patricia. His eyes are locked onto the trapped, sweating figures of Thomas and Jamal. He reaches out, his fingers brushing against the master control panel on the podium. With a soft mechanical hum, the massive 80-foot LED screen behind the dais descends from the ceiling. Typically, this screen would display a saccharine montage of childhood memories or romantic vacation photos. Tonight, it illuminates the ballroom with the harsh, blinding white light of high-level financial forensics. The screen flickers to life, casting a sterile glow over the 300 VIP guests. Murmurs ripple through the crowd as federal insignias, bank logos, and redacted account numbers fill the display. Harrison adjusts the microphone, his voice echoing with the effortless command of a man who controls empires. Dear guests, Harrison says, his tone conversational yet utterly lethal. Please direct your attention to the screen. The man standing near the dessert table, sweating profusely in the rented tuxedo, is Jamal. He has introduced himself to several of you tonight as a hedge fund manager. That is a fabricated title. Jamal is currently under active, aggressive investigation by the Securities and Exchange Commission for textbook wire fraud. Jamal physically recoils. He stumbles backward, nearly knocking over a towering display of champagne flutes. His hands fly to his face, his eyes darting wildly toward the locked mahogany doors. The two massive security guards standing near the exit shift their weight, silently daring him to make a run for it. Subject: Jamal Roth. Status: insolvent /SEC. Investigation: active liabilities. $4 million. Margin deficit. The bold black text on the screen is impossible to misinterpret. The titans of industry standing in the crowd do not gasp in horror. They lean in their eyes, scanning the financial documents projected on the screen with clinical fascination. They are sharks, and they smell blood in the water. He utilized a network of illegal shell companies to hide his margin calls from his investors. Harrison continues pacing slowly across the dais. He transferred client funds into personal accounts to cover his gambling debts. 24 hours ago, his institutional brokers fully capitulated. They dumped his toxic debt onto the secondary market to avoid federal complicity. Harrison presses a button on the podium. The screen shifts, displaying a new set of documents. These feature the unmistakable, terrifying seal of the shadow equity syndicate Thomas visited in the Diamond District, alongside the deed to the family's suburban estate. And the man standing frozen on these steps is Thomas, Harrison announces, gesturing effortlessly toward my biological father. Yesterday afternoon, Thomas took the deed to his primary residence, a residence already heavily leveraged and quietly acquired by a private equity firm, and used it as collateral to secure a $500,000 predatory bridge loan from an illegal lending syndicate. He committed undeniable mortgage fraud to fund this pathetic disruption of our wedding. Thomas looks like he has been struck by lightning. His jaw hangs open. He looks out at the sea of billionaires, politicians, and media moguls. He had planned to demand $10 million from these people. He had planned to stand tall and humiliate me. Now his absolute financial incompetence and criminal desperation are being broadcast in high definition. The press pool penned in by the security detail at the back of the room erupts into a frenzy of activity. Camera flashes strobe through the ballroom like erratic lightning. Telephoto lenses zoom in on the projected SEC documents and the foreclosure notices. Journalists are furiously typing on their phones, realizing that Patricia's promised wedding scandal has just morphed into a massive federal fraud exclusive. Harrison turns back to the microphone, his eyes finding mine for a brief supportive moment before he looks back at the crowd. As of this afternoon, Harrison says, his voice dropping to a low, resonant pitch that commands total silence. An anonymous shell corporation purchased Jamal's entire $4 million debt portfolio for pennies on the dollar. That same corporation purchased the predatory note on Thomas's home, executing an immediate acceleration clause. They owe everything they have and everything they will ever earn to one single entity. Harrison pauses, letting the suspense stretch until it becomes almost agonizing. That anonymous corporation, Harrison concludes, his voice ringing with absolute pride, is Vanguard Risk Management. And Vanguard Risk Management is entirely owned, funded, and ruthlessly operated by my brilliant wife, Olivia. The ballroom erupts. It is not a polite society applause. It is a loud, visceral wave of shock, awe, and genuine respect from the wealthiest people in the country. They understand the flawless execution of this trap. They look at me standing tall in my custom silk gown, and they see a predator who just outplayed a den of scavengers. Patricia drops to her knees. Her legs simply give out. She hits the marble steps of the dais, the impact echoing sharply. She stares up at the screen, reading her own name listed on the foreclosure documents. The suburban palace she worshipped, the country club memberships she flaunted, the entire fake reality she built to terrorize me, it is all gone, evaporated into thin air, This is illegal. Thomas manages to choke out, his voice cracking into a high, pathetic whine. You cannot do this. We are your blood. We raised you. You cannot throw us out on the street. I step forward, leaving the microphone behind. I walk down the final 2 steps until I am standing directly over Patricia and Thomas. The camera flashes from the press pool illuminate my face, capturing my absolute lack of mercy. I am not throwing you out on the street, I say, my voice cold, steady, and loud enough for the reporters to hear. The federal marshals will be doing that on Monday morning. I simply bought the paper. Across the room, Brittany is staring at her phone in sheer terror. She had kept her live stream running this entire time, expecting her followers to rally behind her mother's fake tears. Instead, the chat is moving at lightning speed, entirely turning against her. Wait, her brother committed wire fraud. They took out an illegal loan to crash a wedding. OMG, the bride just bought their house. Legend, Brittany is crying because she's homeless now. Oh, Mayo. Brittany frantically tries to end the broadcast, but her fingers are shaking too violently. She drops the phone. It clatters against the marble floor, the lens cracking, but the audio continues to broadcast the destruction of our family name to millions of viewers. Jamal finally breaks. He abandons his arrogant posture, drops his champagne glass, and sprints toward the locked mahogany doors. He slams his fists against the heavy wood, pulling frantically at the brass handles. "Let me out!" Jamal screams, his voice cracking with hysteria. "Open the doors! I need to call my broker! I need to call my lawyer! Open the doors!" The two elite security guards simply cross their arms, watching him panic with blank, unbothered expressions. The doors do not budge. There is no escape. The trap is completely sealed. The execution is entirely public, and the bill has officially come due. Jamal continues to beat his fists against the heavy mahogany doors, his frantic, desperate gasps echoing through the back of the ballroom. Thomas watches his son fail the reality of their absolute powerlessness, finally breaking through his thick skull. He turns back to the dais, his face twisting into a feral, ugly snarl. He realizes that brute force and financial extortion are dead. He has no money, no leverage, and no escape. So he reaches for the oldest, most toxic weapon in the narcissistic parent's arsenal. He reaches for guilt, obligation, and blood. "You ungrateful wretch," Thomas screams, abandoning any remaining shred of dignity. He points a shaking finger directly at Olivia's face. "I gave you a roof over your head. We fed you, we clothed you, you share my blood, and you owe us your entire miserable life." A low, mocking murmur ripples through the crowd of billionaires and industry titans. They look at Thomas with profound disgust. A man holding a fabricated illegal loan attempting to guilt-trip a financial powerhouse is the ultimate display of pathetic desperation. But Thomas does not stop. He steps closer to the podium, his voice cracking into a hysterical, menacing pitch. "You think you are so smart because you bought some debt?" Thomas spits his eyes wide and frantic. "You are my child, under the eyes of the law. Children have legal obligations to their parents. I will drag you into family court. I will sue you for parental maintenance. I will make sure a judge forces you to write us a monthly check for the rest of our lives. You will pay for our upkeep, or I will drag your new shiny Rothschild name through every muddy courtroom in this state." The threat hangs in the freezing air of the ballroom. It is a desperate, flailing attempt to claw back control using the legal system. Olivia does not flinch. She simply stares at him with an expression of mild clinical pity. Before she can even open her mouth to reply, the crowd of VIP guests parts like the Red Sea. A woman steps forward from the front row. She is breathtakingly elegant, radiating an aura of untouchable aristocratic power. She is draped in a tailored charcoal gray Chanel suit, her silver hair pulled back into a flawless chignon. She does not scream. She does not rush. She glides up the marble steps of the dais carrying a slim, leather portfolio. "Sue, who..." The two words are spoken quietly, but they slice through Thomas's hysterical ranting like a guillotine. The woman's voice is cultured, icy, and vibrating with absolute authority. Thomas stammers, taking a hesitant step back. "Who the hell are you to interrupt me?" Patricia, who has been trembling on her knees, looks up. Her eyes lock onto the older woman's face. All the remaining color drains from Patricia's cheeks. Her jaw drops and a sound resembling a strangled gasp escapes her throat. "Diana." Patricia whispers, her entire body shaking with pure, unadulterated terror. "It has been 26 years, Patricia," Diana says, not bothering to look down at the pathetic woman on the floor. "I see you have spent every dime of my late sister's money on cheap synthetic fabrics and terrible cosmetic surgery." Thomas looks wildly between his wife and the stranger. "What are you talking about?" "Who is she?" "Let me introduce myself properly to the man who claims to be a father," Diana says, turning her glacial stare onto Thomas. "I am Diana Kensington, senior partner at Kensington and Associates. I represent the Rothschild family's private legal interests. And more importantly, I am Olivia's biological aunt." A collective gasp finally breaks the silence in the room. The press pool at the back of the hall pushes forward against the security line, cameras flashing frantically. Brittany still holding her cracked phone stares in open-mouthed shock as the foundation of her entire life is ripped away in a single sentence. You cannot sue a woman for parental maintenance when you share absolutely no DNA with her. Diana states, her voice echoing perfectly through the ballroom. You are not her father, Thomas. Patricia is not her mother. That is a lie, Thomas roars, though his voice wavers with sudden terrifying uncertainty. We raised her. We are her parents. You were paid thieving babysitters, Diana corrects him, her tone merciless. 26 years ago, my sister passed away unexpectedly. Her will stipulated that her infant daughter be placed in the temporary custody of her supposedly best friend, Patricia. Along with the child, my sister left a monthly trust stipend of $15,000 to ensure her daughter was raised with every possible advantage until the estate could be properly settled. Diana opens her leather portfolio and pulls out a thick stack of bank records, holding them up for the cameras to capture. Instead of raising her with love, you stole the money. Diana continues, her voice dripping with lethal contempt. You used the Kensington Trust to fund your ridiculous suburban lifestyle. You used my niece's money to buy Jamal's cars and Brittany's pageant dresses. You kept her true identity a secret, forcing the rightful Kensington heir to sleep in a damp basement and wear hand-me-downs, all while depositing her monthly stipends into your personal offshore accounts. Thomas is sweating profusely now, his eyes darting toward the locked doors. That trust was sealed. You cannot prove any of this. You never legally adopted her, Diana replies smoothly, stepping closer to Thomas and forcing him to shrink back. You kept the guardianship entirely unofficial to avoid regular state audits of the trust account. Under the eyes of the law, you have absolutely zero parental rights. The moment the trust payouts automatically ceased on Olivia's 18th birthday, you conveniently declared her a financial burden and kicked her out of the house. Olivia steps up beside Diana, her expression radiating absolute triumph. You always told me I was a useless burden, Thomas. Olivia says, her voice carrying through the silent room. You told me I owed you for the food on my plate. 2 years ago, I hired a private investigator to find out why you always refused to show me my original birth certificate. That is when I found the Kensington Trust documents hidden in your safe. That is when I found my real family. Patricia lets out a loud, miserable sob, burying her face in her hands. She knows there is no talking their way out of this. The lie they maintained for over 2 decades has been completely dismantled in front of the most powerful people in the city. My aunt did not just give me the truth. Olivia continues, delivering the final crushing blow. She gave me the unspent remainder of my mother's estate. That initial capital is exactly what I used to build Vanguard Risk Management. I did not just buy your debt with random funds. I used my own stolen legacy to finance your total, absolute destruction. Thomas's legs finally give out. He collapses onto the marble steps beside his wife. His threat of a family court lawsuit is dead. His claim to parental authority is dead. He is not a father demanding respect. He is a fraud, an embezzler, and a kidnapper who has just been publicly executed by the child he spent a lifetime abusing. The bloodline card has been played, and it has turned to ash in his hands. Thomas scrambles to his feet, but his monumental ego refuses to let him stay down. He cannot accept the absolute reality of his defeat. His face flushes a dangerous mottled red, and he points a sweaty, trembling finger at Olivia. You think some corporate buyout changes the laws of nature? Thomas sneers, his voice echoing frantically in the vast, silent ballroom. I am your biological father. I have rights. There are filial responsibility laws in this state. I will drag you into family court. I will sue you for parental maintenance. I will make sure a judge forces you to write us a monthly check for the rest of our lives. You will pay for our upkeep, or I will drag your new shiny Rothschild name through every muddy courtroom until the press eats you alive. The billionaires and power brokers in the room exchange amused, cynical glances. A man standing near the front row, the CEO of a major tech conglomerate, actually chuckles quietly into his champagne glass, threatening a hostile, baseless legal battle against a family that practically owns the judiciary is a level of stupidity rarely seen in this ballroom. Diana Kensington does not flinch. She opens her slim leather portfolio with slow, deliberate precision. She extracts a single thick document bound in a blue legal backing stamped with a heavy gold seal that catches the brilliant light of the chandeliers. Sue, who Diana asks, her voice cutting through Thomas's desperate bluster like a diamond blade. Thomas glares at her, his chest heaving. My daughter blood is blood, lady, and the law protects parents. You are incredibly ignorant of the law for a man who just committed textbook mortgage fraud, Diana states smoothly. She holds the document aloft, ensuring the trapped press corps at the back of the room has a clear line of sight. This is a finalized decree from the state Supreme Court. It was sealed 5 years ago specifically to prevent parasites like you from ever attaching yourselves to my family again. Patricia stares at the paper from where she kneels on the marble steps, her breath hitching in her throat. What is that? What did you do? Diana steps closer to the microphone. Her posture is regal, her delivery merciless. You have no rights. 5 years ago, Olivia completed an adult adoption with me. The words strike the dais like a physical blow. Thomas freezes, his mouth hanging open. The concept is so completely foreign to his narcissistic worldview that his brain entirely short-circuits. Under United States law, an adult adoption completely and permanently severs all legal ties to the biological parents. Diana explains, her tone clinical, instructing them on their own demise. Her original birth certificate was sealed and permanently voided by the state. A new birth certificate was reissued. Legally, financially, and biologically, in the eyes of the law, she is the sole legal daughter of Diana Kensington. Olivia stands tall beside her aunt, feeling the absolute unbreakable armor of that truth. It was the best day of her life, the day she officially erased Thomas and Patricia from her legal existence, claiming the family that actually chose her. You cannot do that, Thomas stammers, sheer panic finally replacing his manufactured rage. You cannot just buy a person. We raised her. We gave her life. You neglected her. Diana corrects him sharply, her voice echoing with lethal authority. You used her as a human shield for your own failures. You lost any claim to her the day you treated her like a bank account. You have absolutely zero legal standing to sue her for maintenance. You have zero rights to future grandchildren. You cannot even claim to be her next of kin in a medical emergency. You are legally nothing to her. You are just strangers who share a bit of expired DNA. Patricia lets out a harrowing guttural scream. The sound is raw, ugly, and entirely devoid of her usual theatricality. She collapses completely, her body hitting the marble floor with a sickening thud. The emerald silk of her gown pools around her like stagnant water. Her hands grasp at her perfectly styled hair, pulling at the roots, ruining the expensive updo. The illusion is totally shattered. She has no leverage. She has no daughter to extort. She has no house to return to. She is nothing. My house. Patricia wails, rocking back and forth on the hard floor, staring blankly at the massive LED screen still displaying their financial ruin. My beautiful house. My friends. My country club. What am I going to do? Olivia looks down at the woman who tormented her for decades. There is no sympathy in her eyes, only the cold, unyielding detachment of a CEO observing a bankrupt competitor. You are going to need a very good public defender, Patricia. Because Vanguard Risk Management does not offer grace periods to hostile debtors. Over by the doors, Jamal is still beating his fists against the heavy wood, sobbing openly as the elite security guards watch him with blank, stone-faced expressions. He is trapped. Near the dessert table, Brittany is frozen. She stares at the shattered screen of her dropped phone. The audio is still broadcasting. The live comments are flooding in at lightning speed, entirely tearing her family to shreds. Her social media empire built on lies and victimhood is burning to the ground in real time. Millions of followers are currently watching her parents be exposed as felons and fraudsters. Thomas looks around frantically. The elite guests are actively turning their backs on him, forming an impenetrable wall of tailored suits and silk gowns. He is entirely isolated. Harrison Thomas pleads, his voice breaking into a pathetic whine as he turns to the groom. Harrison, you are a reasonable man. We are businessmen. Please. Talk to your wife. We can negotiate this. We can come to an arrangement. Harrison wraps a protective, loving arm around Olivia's waist, pulling her close. He looks at Thomas with the casual disgust of someone scraping filth off his expensive shoes. I do not negotiate with criminals, Thomas, and neither does my wife. You walked into my home and threatened my family. The fact that you are still standing is a testament to Olivia's remarkable self-control. I highly suggest you save your breath. You are going to need it for your deposition. The heavy, suffocating silence of the ballroom is suddenly pierced by a new sound. It does not come from inside the reception. It comes from the street outside, cutting through the thick, soundproofed glass windows. A sharp, rising wail. Then another, and another. The piercing, unmistakable shriek of police sirens. Patricia freezes on the floor, her wailing abruptly cutting off. Thomas's head snaps toward the grand windows. The flashing red and blue lights begin to reflect off the crystal chandeliers, painting the terrified faces of the trespassers in harsh rhythmic pulses. The heavy rhythmic pulses of red and blue light wash over the grand ballroom, casting long, distorted shadows across the marble floors. The distant wail of the sirens abruptly cuts off, replaced by the heavy screech of tires on the cobblestone driveway outside. Inside the hall, the atmosphere shifts from stunned silence to electric anticipation. The elite guests, veterans of corporate warfare and high-stakes maneuvering, seamlessly step back. They form a wide, clear aisle leading straight from the grand entrance to the dais. No one speaks. No one moves to intervene. They simply watch as the final act of this meticulously orchestrated execution unfolds. At the back of the room, the head of elite security touches his earpiece. He gives a single sharp nod to his men. The heavy deadbolts on the mahogany doors disengage with a loud metallic clack that reverberates through the cavernous space. The doors are pulled wide open. A team of federal agents strides into the ballroom. Their dark windbreakers emblazoned with the bright yellow letters of the FBI and the Financial Crimes Enforcement Network stand in stark contrast to the sea of bespoke tuxedos and designer gowns. They move with aggressive, terrifying purpose. They do not pause to admire the cascading crystal chandeliers or the towering floral arrangements. They do not even glance at Patricia, who is still weeping uncontrollably on the floor, or Thomas, who is visibly shaking beside her. Their eyes are locked entirely on the man cowering near the shattered remains of the dessert table. Jamal realizes what is happening a fraction of a second before the agents reach him. The sheer panic completely overrides his brain. He spins around wildly, looking for an exit that does not exist. He takes a frantic step backward, his foot catching on the heavy velvet tablecloth. With a sickening crash, Jamal falls hard, pulling a towering 5-tier crystal display of Petit Four down with him. The glass shatters into 1,000 sparkling pieces across the floor, completely destroying the illusion of his refined wealth. Jamal Roth, the lead agent, barks, his voice easily cutting through the noise of the breaking glass. Do not move. Jamal scrambles backward on his hands and knees, his rented tuxedo pants tearing against the sharp shards of crystal. He raises his hands in a pathetic gesture of surrender, his face pale and slick with cold sweat. I did not do it, Jamal stammers, his voice cracking into a high pitch. It was the market. The market crashed. You cannot arrest me for a bad trade. You are under arrest for federal wire fraud, securities fraud, and the embezzlement of client funds, the agent states coldly, stepping over the ruined desserts and grabbing Jamal roughly by the shoulder. You have the right to remain silent. I highly suggest you start using it. The agents haul Jamal to his feet. His legs are practically useless, forcing the officers to support his entire body weight. The sharp, unmistakable sound of steel handcuffs ratcheting tight echoes through the room. It is the sound of finality, the sound of a life entirely over. Brittany, who has been standing frozen beside the broken pieces of her phone, suddenly snaps out of her state of shock. The sight of the steel cuffs locking around her husband's wrists shatters her paralysis. Her lavish lifestyle, her social media empire, the luxury cars and the designer bags are all vanishing before her very eyes. She looks wildly at Thomas and Patricia, but her parents are completely broken, offering no protection and no money. Her frantic gaze snaps back to the dais. She looks at the billionaires, the politicians, and finally at the woman standing above them all. Brittany lets out a desperate guttural sob and lunges forward. She scrambles past the federal agents, ignoring the sharp pieces of crystal biting through her expensive satin heels. She throws herself at the marble steps of the dais, landing hard on her knees. She reaches out with both hands, her manicured fingers tightly gripping the heavy silk fabric of Olivia's custom wedding gown. "Sister, please!" Brittany wails, tears streaming down her face, ruining her perfect camera-ready makeup. "Please. You have the money, you own Vanguard. You can fix this. Tell them to let him go. Pay off the debt. I will do anything. Just please save him." The press pool at the back of the room pushes against the velvet ropes. The camera flashes turn into a blinding, continuous strobe light, capturing the desperate weeping woman, clutching the gown of the untouchable billionaire bride. It is the ultimate image of defeat. Olivia looks down at the hands gripping her dress. She does not kick Brittany away. She does not raise her voice. She stands perfectly still, her face an unreadable mask of absolute chilling calm. She looks at Brittany's tear-streaked face, taking in the pathetic desperation of a woman who built her entire life on tearing others down. Olivia slowly reaches down. Her fingers wrap around Brittany's wrists. Her grip is surprisingly strong, fueled by years of silent endurance and unbreakable resolve. With a single deliberate motion, Olivia peels Brittany's hands off her silk gown and lets them drop to the cold marble floor. Sister Brittany begs one last time, looking up with wide, terrified eyes. Olivia holds her gaze, letting the silence stretch for a painful, agonizing second. "Your sister died on Thanksgiving night 6 years ago," Olivia says. The words are spoken softly, but they land with the devastating force of a physical blow. There is no anger in Olivia's tone. There is no spite. There is only the absolute freezing void of a severed connection. It is the final nail in the coffin. Brittany's breath hitches. The reality of those words crushes the last microscopic shred of hope in her chest. She collapses forward, her head resting on the cold steps, sobbing hysterically into her hands. She realizes far too late that the bridge she burned all those years ago was the only one that could have saved her today. "Take him out," the lead agent commands, ignoring the weeping woman on the steps. The agents pivot roughly, dragging Jamal toward the grand mahogany doors. Jamal kicks and struggles, his expensive shoes slipping on the marble floor. He screams for his lawyer, he screams for his broker, and finally he screams for Thomas to do something. But Thomas just sits on the floor, staring blankly ahead, completely destroyed. As the agents drag Jamal through the grand foyer, the press corps absolutely unleashes. The barrage of camera flashes turns the hallway into a blinding sea of white light. Microphones are shoved in Jamal's face. Reporters shout questions over one another, demanding statements about the hedge fund, the stolen money, and the fraudulent loans. Jamal squeezes his eyes shut, turning his face away from the lenses, but there is nowhere to hide. He is swallowed by the aggressive swarm of journalists, his pathetic cries drowned out by the relentless clicking of camera shutters. The heavy mahogany doors swing shut behind them, sealing the exit. The flashing red and blue lights outside continue to pulse against the glass windows, a silent, rhythmic testament to the total annihilation of the people who thought they could break us. The heavy mahogany doors slam shut, sealing the grand ballroom and cutting off the chaotic shouting of the press corps. The pulsing red and blue police lights continue to reflect against the frosted glass of the lobby windows, a silent testament to Jamal's total downfall. Inside the reception, the atmosphere is utterly transformed. The tension has broken, replaced by the low buzzing hum of hundreds of elite guests whispering in shock and amusement. They turn their backs on the remaining intruders, treating them like a spill on the marble floor waiting to be cleaned up. Brittany remains collapsed on the steps of the dais, her body trembling with violent sobs. Her designer makeup runs down her face in dark, muddy streaks, staining the front of her expensive silk gown. Thomas sits beside her, completely immobilized by the catastrophic collapse of his empire. Patricia is staring blankly at the ceiling, her mouth opening and closing without producing any sound. They are completely broken, stripped of their fake legacy, and facing absolute ruin, before anyone can even attempt to stand the crowd parts once more. A tall, impeccably dressed man in a tailored navy suit strides confidently down the makeshift aisle. He is the general manager of the Ritz-Carlton, his face an emotionless mask of extreme professional courtesy. He is flanked by two massive, broad-shouldered hotel security guards whose stern expressions make it abundantly clear they are not here to negotiate. The manager stops directly in front of Thomas and Patricia. He looks down at them, ensuring his voice is pitched just loud enough to carry to the surrounding tables of listening billionaires. Sir Madam, the manager begins his tone crisp and perfectly polite. I regret to inform you that the credit card on file for your 2 first-class suites has been declined. Thomas blinks, snapping out of his daze. He looks up at the manager, his face immediately flushing with a fresh wave of arrogant indignation. Declined. That is impossible. Run it again. I have a limitless line of credit. We have run it again, sir, the manager replies smoothly, not breaking eye contact. We have also attempted to run the 3 alternate platinum cards listed under your profile. Every single transaction has returned a hard decline from your financial institutions. All of your accounts have been frozen. Patricia gasps, her hands flying to her face. She looks wildly at Olivia, then at Diana, suddenly realizing the true depth of Vanguard Risk Management's hostile takeover. They did not just buy the debt. They locked down every single cent the family had access to. Therefore, the manager continues, ignoring Patricia's panic hotel policy, requires me to collect an immediate cash payment of $15,000 to cover the remainder of your weekend reservation. You may pay this balance right now, or I must ask you to leave the premises immediately. $15,000 in cash! Thomas sputters, his voice cracking into a high, hysterical pitch. Who carries $15,000 in cash? Let me write a check. Let me call my banker. You cannot do this to me. I am a VIP guest. You are currently a trespasser. The manager corrects him coldly. We do not accept personal checks from accounts under active federal investigation. Since you cannot produce the required payment, your reservation is hereby canceled. Your belongings have already been packed by our staff and brought down to the main lobby. Gentlemen, please escort them out. The 2 massive security guards step forward instantly. One grabs Thomas by the upper arm, hauling him roughly to his feet. Thomas tries to pull away, shouting about his rights and threatening to sue the hotel, but the guard's grip is like a steel vice. The second guard reaches down and pulls Patricia up by her elbow. She shrieks, stumbling over the hem of her ruined emerald gown, her expensive heels slipping on the polished floor. Get up, the guard orders Brittany, who is still sobbing on the steps. Brittany slowly scrambles to her feet, her entire body shaking. She looks around the room one last time, making desperate eye contact with the surrounding guests. She is looking for a sympathetic face, a helping hand, or a wealthy contact who might step in and save her. Instead, she is met with cold stares, turned backs, and raised champagne glasses. The high society crowd has entirely rejected them. Move along, the manager instructs. The guards begin marching Thomas, Patricia, and Brittany straight down the center aisle of the ballroom. It is the ultimate excruciating walk of shame. Hundreds of pairs of eyes track their every stumble. The silence in the room is deafening, punctuated only by Patricia's pathetic weeping and Thomas's breathless cursing. They are paraded past the towering floral arrangements, past the ice sculptures, and straight out into the grand lobby of the hotel. Waiting near the revolving front doors is a standard brass luggage cart. Piled haphazardly on top are their expensive designer suitcases, hastily shoved together by the housekeeping staff. The manager gestures to the door. Your luggage. Please exit the building. We will be permanently revoking your status at all of our properties worldwide. Good evening. As they approach the exit, the automatic glass doors slide open. A brutal, howling gust of wind instantly sweeps into the warm lobby. The weather outside is violent. A freezing mix of torrential rain and biting snow is pouring from the pitch-black sky, whipping across the cobblestone driveway in cruel, icy sheets. Patricia stops dead in her tracks, wrapping her arms around her thin silk gown as the freezing air hits her skin. "You cannot put us out there!" she screams, her voice cracking with pure terror. "We have no cars. We have no money for a taxi. We will freeze to death." The guards do not hesitate. They push Thomas and Patricia forward, forcing them across the threshold and out into the brutal storm. Brittany stumbles blindly after them, crying uncontrollably as the freezing rain instantly soaks her hair and ruins her dress. A bellhop casually pushes the luggage cart out behind them, letting the expensive leather bags tumble onto the wet, freezing pavement before turning around and walking back inside. The heavy glass doors slide shut, sealing the lobby and blocking the howling wind. Olivia stands perfectly still just a few feet away, safely inside the glowing golden warmth of the hotel lobby. Harrison stands beside her, his hand resting gently on the small of her back. Diana watches from her other side, a look of profound satisfaction on her elegant face. Through the thick glass, Olivia watches her abusers. Thomas is shivering violently, trying to pull his ruined tuxedo jacket tighter around himself, shouting pointlessly at passing cars. Patricia is backed against the exterior brick wall, crying as the sleet hits her face, her emerald gown clinging to her freezing body. Brittany is sitting on one of her overturned designer suitcases in the middle of the downpour, entirely defeated. Olivia looks at them, and a vivid, crystal-clear memory washes over her. It was Thanksgiving night, exactly 6 years ago. It was raining and snowing just like this. She remembers standing on the wet pavement outside their massive suburban house, shivering in a thin, worn-out sweater. She remembers the sound of Thomas locking the deadbolt, leaving her to freeze with absolutely nothing to her name, laughing as he told her she was entirely worthless. She remembers the biting cold sinking into her bones. She remembers the absolute terror of having nowhere to go. Now the roles are completely reversed. The universe has delivered its final perfect verdict. Olivia watches the rain wash away the last remnants of the people who tried to destroy her. She does not feel pity. She does not feel anger. She feels a profound, untouchable peace. She turns away from the glass doors, leaving them to the freezing night, and walks back into the warmth of her own beautiful life. The heavy, soundproofed doors of the grand ballroom swing open to welcome them back. The moment Olivia steps over the threshold, the suffocating tension that had gripped the room completely evaporates. The elite guests, the titans of industry, and masters of finance turn toward the bride and groom. They do not whisper in pity. They do not look away in awkwardness. They raise their champagne glasses in unison. A spontaneous, echoing round of applause erupts across the room. It is a standing ovation not just for a wedding, but for a masterclass in absolute victory. The string quartet, having taken their cue from the head of security, strikes up a lively, sweeping waltz. The music swells, filling the cavernous space with warmth and light. The shattered crystal from Jamal's frantic fall has already been swept away by an invisible army of hotel staff, leaving the polished marble floor immaculate once again. The ugly, desperate disruption of the past hour is entirely erased. Harrison takes Olivia's hand, leading her toward the center of the dance floor. The crowd parts seamlessly for them, offering respectful smiles and nods of genuine admiration. He pulls her close, his hand resting securely on the small of her back. The waltz carries them into a smooth, effortless rhythm. Olivia looks up into her husband's eyes. The icy, calculating CEO, who just dismantled 3 lives without blinking, melts away, leaving only a woman who finally feels entirely safe. "You were magnificent," Harrison murmurs, his voice low and vibrating with absolute adoration. "I have never been more terrified and deeply in love with you than I was 10 minutes ago." Olivia lets out a genuine, breathless laugh. The sound is light and completely free of the heavy burdens she carried for 26 years. "We make a very dangerous team, Mr. Rothschild." Harrison smiles, spinning her gently under the brilliant glow of the chandeliers. "The most dangerous," he agrees, "and the most secure. They can never touch you again. You are completely untouchable." She leans her head against his shoulder, listening to the steady, reassuring beat of his heart. For the first time in her entire life, she is not bracing for an impact. She is not waiting for a cruel comment, a stolen paycheck, or a sudden vicious betrayal. She is simply dancing with the man who loves her fiercely and unequivocally. As the waltz gracefully concludes, the guests erupt into another round of enthusiastic applause. Harrison kisses her forehead before gently stepping back, allowing the next highly anticipated moment to unfold. Diana steps onto the edge of the dance floor. The aristocratic, terrifying legal shark who had just decimated Thomas Kensington is gone. In her place stands a mother looking at her child with immeasurable, fierce pride. Olivia does not walk. She practically runs the short distance, throwing her arms around the older woman. Diana catches her, smoothly holding her tight against her tailored Chanel suit. The scent of jasmine and expensive parchment paper surrounds Olivia, a scent that has meant safety and truth since the day she found those hidden trust documents in Thomas's safe. "I am so incredibly proud of you, Diana," whispers her cultured voice thick with genuine emotion. "You took back your life. You took back your mother's legacy. You did it all with perfect, flawless grace." "Thank you for saving me," Olivia replies, her voice tight, but her tears are purely joyful. "Thank you for showing me what a real mother looks like." Diana pulls back just enough to frame Olivia's face with her elegant hands. She looks directly into Olivia's eyes, her expression fiercely protective. "I did not save you, my darling girl. You saved yourself. You survived their cruelty entirely on your own. I just gave you the sword. Now go enjoy your empire." The reception transitions into a spectacular, joyous celebration. The open bar flows with vintage champagne. Waiters glide through the room carrying silver trays of caviar and truffles. The atmosphere is electric, charged with the thrilling energy of watching apex predators secure their territory. Olivia moves through the crowd with Harrison by her side. Every handshake, every congratulatory toast cements her position at the absolute pinnacle of the city's hierarchy. She is no longer the unwanted hidden secret of a desperate suburban family. She is Olivia Kensington Rothschild, a titan in her own right, surrounded by allies who respect her power and fear her wrath. Hours later, the reception begins to wind down. The music slows to a soft, romantic tempo. Olivia stands near the grand windows, taking a moment of quiet reflection. The freezing storm still rages outside the glass, burying the city streets in a thick, treacherous layer of ice and snow. She knows Thomas, Patricia, and Brittany are out there somewhere, navigating the brutal reality of their absolute ruin, shivering in the cold just as she once did. But the image does not bring her joy. It does not bring her anger or spite. It brings her nothing at all. They are entirely irrelevant. They are ghosts from a past life that no longer exists. They have been excised from her reality with surgical precision. Olivia takes a deep breath of the crisp, conditioned air inside her fortress. She watches the reflection of her beautiful diamond-encrusted wedding gown in the glass, and then she looks at Harrison, who is walking toward her with 2 glasses of champagne. Family is not a biological accident used as an excuse to bind you to their failures. Family is not a group of people who demand your blood, your money, and your sanity just because you share a last name. Family are the ones who give you the sword when you are defenseless. They are the ones who give you the strength to stand tall, who build fortresses around you, and who protect you unconditionally when the storm hits. Today, I did not lose a family. I just took out the trash. She turns away from the cold glass, slipping her hand into Harrison's waiting palm. They walk out of the grand ballroom together, leaving the storm the past and the ghosts completely behind them, fade to black. The most profound lesson to extract from this saga of betrayal and vindication is that biology does not automatically equate to family, and true security comes from recognizing your own intrinsic worth. For decades, the protagonist was treated as a disposable asset, a scapegoat subjected to emotional manipulation, financial exploitation, and blatant cruelty, all masked by the societal expectation of family loyalty. Her genuine triumph did not occur the moment she acquired immense wealth or legal leverage. It happened the exact moment she stopped seeking the approval of people committed to misunderstanding her. Toxic dynamics thrive on silence, and the deeply ingrained belief that we must endlessly accommodate blood relatives regardless of their toxic behavior. This narrative shatters that dangerous illusion. It vividly illustrates that when the people who are supposed to protect you become the very predators you need protection from, walking away is not an act of betrayal, it is a necessary act of survival. The protagonist's journey teaches us that family is an earned title. It is built entirely on a foundation of mutual respect, unconditional support, and safety, not just shared genetics. Furthermore, the story highlights that the ultimate victory against narcissistic abusers is not their public downfall, though that may offer fleeting satisfaction. True victory is complete emotional detachment. It is the ability to turn your back on the chaos, step out of the toxic cycle, and build a fortress of chosen loved ones who celebrate your existence rather than exploit it. You do not owe your peace of mind to anyone who uses your shared DNA as a weapon. Evaluate the relationships in your life that demand your peace as a form of payment, and take the brave first step toward reclaiming your personal boundaries today.